We will defend these police officers.
Listen to police officers' commands, listen to what we tell you, and just stop. The nation needs to realize that when we tell you to do something, do it. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, then the courts will figure it out.
We don't get to take the law, we enforce it. But at the end of the day, each and every member should go home safe. Sometimes the use of force is necessary. You need to comply with the police officer, the way the system was meant to be. Comply with the orders of police officers. Resisting arrest is a real and dangerous crime.
Nonpartisan Liberty for All. I'm your host, Dave Bourne, and it is January 27, 2016. And we are coming to you live from Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you for tuning in to Nonpartisan Liberty for All. We are on Tuesday through Thursday at 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern. And you can listen live on Spreaker.com and NonpartisanLibertyForAll.com, as well as to the archives on Spreaker, YouTube, Twitter, and SoundCloud, as well as Tumblr, but that's TUMLR. I don't know. If you're not on Tumblr already, don't even fuck with it. But if it's something that you're already on, then go look for us on Tumblr. We promote the ideas of true freedom and liberty, meaning being able to do what you want as long as you respect the freedom of others and don't directly interfere with their freedom, as well as exposing government for what it is, a mafia based on extortion that rules without consent by threat of force and violence. We have a few different things we're going to talk about today. Of course, our main topic being hacktivism, which for those who have never heard the term or aren't familiar with the word, it has to do with hacking, which would be hacking into other people's systems, computers, things like that, including government systems and computers. And the difference between, I guess, just a hacker and a hacktivist is a hacktivist is actually an activist as well. So they're doing it for the common good or to fight for freedom or liberty, as opposed to just a hacker who might be doing it for the money. And I think what they try to do a lot is make hacktivists out to be like regular hackers, that they're in it for the money and they're trying to essentially do these things for reasons other than the altruistic reasons that they are really doing it for. And if you see these guys, if you've ever seen a documentary or videos, a lot of them are pretty young, and they're so smart that they have so many other ways of making money that they don't have to hack into systems to make money. They can make money through computer programs, through creating their own computer programs, through being a computer programmer. They don't have to be a hacktivist as well, but they're doing it because most of them, I mean, I can't speak for every single one of them. This is just in general, that they're doing it because they know that the government is fucking us over. They know the things that the government is doing, and they're not going to allow the government to get away with it. And they fortunately have a skill that I think is very important. And we'll get into how important it is later on in the show. Later on, we'll also be joined by Shire Dude live in New Hampshire. He'll be joining us by Spreaker. Speaking of Spreaker, if you'd like to call into the show, you could call in, send a contact request to Nonpartisan Liberty for All, and your name, where you're calling from, and what you want to talk about, and we'll bring you on. You can also call in at 702-470-7664. That's 702-470-7664. And to expedite the call, if you just texted in your name, where you're calling from, or what you want to talk about, that would probably get you on quicker. So before we get to our main topic, which I really do believe this is an important topic, there's a couple things that I believe are very important when it comes to freedom and liberty. And one of them being parenting. And that's more of something that could change the future. And the more people that take their kids out of government schools and follow peaceful parenting and not disciplining their kids and being able to bring their kids up to think freely and not just obey everything, I think that is very important. But that's more of something that you'd have to wait 15 to 20 years to see the effects of that, because that would be the next generation. The other thing I talk about a lot is noncompliance and self-defense, and not being afraid to defend yourself against anybody just because they're a member of a entity that claims they rule where you live. Doesn't mean that you don't have the right to defend yourself against them. And the other thing I think that is very important, and I think it will get more important in the future, is hacktivists, because the one thing that they can do that is going to be very important is counter some of the technology that the government is going to come up with. And that is very important, because that's where I think there's the biggest difference. And I'm talking about if it comes down to the point where the government totally takes over and you have no rights or freedoms whatsoever. And I think that will happen at some point. But hacktivists will be able to hopefully help with combating some of that technology. And that is very important. So those are three of the things that I see as being the most important regarding freedom. And I may be missing a couple things, but just as far as what's in my mind right now, those are three very important things. But again, before we get to our main topic of hacktivists, I have a few stories that I wanted to talk about. So, I believe it was last night. No, it was Monday night, because I got to watch it. I was like, I believe it was last night. And I'm like, I don't know what day it is. It's when, see, I think I said, did I say it was, I don't think I said the day. I think I just said January 27, 2016. I don't think I said Wednesday, because for a minute I thought it was Tuesday. But on Monday, there was, of course, another debate, a master debate. It wasn't really a debate, though. It was like a town hall type thing where they brought out each of the wannabe rulers. And let's get this straight. That's what they are. They are wannabe rulers. These are people that want to rule over you. Otherwise, what the fuck would they be running for? So let's get that straight. Why anybody would worship these people or celebrate them or root for them, or I understand if you feel like your only option is to vote for somebody, if that's how you feel, but don't worship them. Don't look at them like they're any better than anybody else. Look at it as you feel that you're in a situation that you don't have anything else to do. And the only thing is to vote for one of the candidates that are put in front of you. And if that's how you feel, that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. But you have people that go to these rallies, man, and scream for these people, and they get excited, and it's insane. It really is. Well, Camille Pagula, who I'm sure a lot of feminists know, she had, and I hope I have this right, that she wrote Girl Interrupted, I'm pretty sure, which I read in college. But she's a feminist, but she's more of a first wave feminist. She's a realistic feminist. She's not a brainwashed by the political bullshit. So anyway, in this article out of Salon, she says Hillary's blame men first feminism may prove costly in 2016. And what she's saying is, you know, Hillary's gotten more, obviously more support from women than men, which would obviously make a lot of sense because a lot of women want to see the first woman president. And I guess I get that. I don't know. I mean, I don't really give a fuck. Maybe I would if my whole life it was women that were president. I mean, it doesn't bother me that most of my life, all my bosses were women. I think I had a couple men bosses. I do right now, but that's just recent. But it never really mattered to me as far as if a woman, and I don't give a fuck about president neither, but that again, that she's drawing her support from more women than men. So how by doing that she is going to be able to, because to get elected, she is going to have to get men's votes. And I guess she's lagging among men right now. Now, of course, they're going to say, well, it's because men don't want a woman president. And I don't think that's honestly the case. I think that they don't want her as president. I think there is an issue with her. I think there has always been. I think that people don't like her. She's not likable. And I'm looking at this from the standpoint of if I actually believed in all of this shit. But so I'm taking it from the standpoint that this shit is not rigged, and I actually believe as a voter that the voters can affect what happens, which I think is a bunch of shit. But what is not, which is what is a fact or not, you know, that I guess they can measure by polls, is how women feel about Hillary. And Camille Pagula is saying that that she's lagging among men, that she is not somebody who men are lining up to vote for. And I don't know how that's going to affect the primary. It's really hard for me to do this sometimes when I go through, because to me it's all a lie. It's all bullshit. Because I look at it as you have people controlling pretty much what's going on. And I think based on that, it's either going to be Hillary or possibly Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump would be the perfect president for what the powers that be want. And not only that, I think it shows how much of a joke the country is, really, if Donald Trump can get elected president. Seriously, it's just that is very disturbing. It really is. And I guess now they're saying, and I don't mean to switch stories up here, we'll get back to this one, but this is just a quick this story only had like 2 sentences, so this is just a quick story that there's a picture of somebody in a fucking looks like a jail cell with blood or lipstick all over their face. Oh, it says Donald Trump is a horror movie. No, really. But that now my Internet Explorer is stuck. I need to start using it's like that at work too. I think Google Chrome is what I need to start using. I used it today and then all of a sudden everything speeded up. I thought I downloaded Google Chrome. Maybe I didn't, but I will. I do have Mozilla, but that seems the same. Anyway, sorry for that interruption, but they're saying that, so Donald Trump is pulling this bullshit now. There's another debate on Thursday, which is tomorrow, on Fox, and now all of a sudden, after being best friends with Roger Ailes, who runs Fox News, because I guess it's on Fox News, has not Fox, because you have Fox, the network, and then you have Fox News, just like MSNBC or whatever. But that Donald Trump, what I heard today, has been friends with Roger Ailes, who runs Fox News for years. And he is on O'Reilly tonight as well. So I know he had a thing with Megyn Kelly. For those who don't know, who's another fake fucking... I don't want to say anything derogatory, but whatever. He got into an argument with her, and he made something alluding to blood and talking about her period blood or something or whatever. And that had happened. But I guess Roger Ailes said something about Donald Trump or something like that. You get bits and pieces of these stupid fucking stories. And now 83% of the people that were going to watch. Now, some idiots are going to think that means 83% of just the population, which, of course, it's not 83% of the population. It's 83% of the people that were going to watch are not going to watch if Donald Trump is not there. So what does that tell you? They're watching for the fighting and this is what really kills me about a lot of Americans, not all of them, but that's what a lot of them want. They want the drama. They want the controversy and all of that shit. And I can sit here all day and it's not something that, you know, you're going to hear from me. So I think that affects things, where I'm not somebody who is going to have a guest or a co-host on and sit and argue with them the whole time. But there's a certain percentage of the population that love that. And how anybody can be attracted to Donald Trump as a candidate, and again, it's all rigged anyway. And I think he may be the person that they are going to control, and pretty much I think he's going to go with whatever what he wants. His agenda is pretty much what the agenda is of the people that the powers that be anyway. If you look at what he wants to do, I don't think anybody's even actually looking at what his agenda is. They're just listening to his stupid one-liners and his fights he's starting with people and his arrogance. I personally want to punch the guy in the face. Now, I would not do that, but I've said before, I hated Trump years ago. I always couldn't stand Trump because he is so fucking arrogant. And I mentioned this. He used to call up Howard Stern and talk about his dumb show and how his ratings were great and everybody loves him and it's great. And he's just great all the time. The show's great. The people at NBC are great. They all love the show. They can't get enough of it. It's like, and Howard Stern, you know, for all the respect I used to have for him, and I had a lot of respect for him because he was somebody in radio that really stood up to the government. He really did. He said, fuck you. I'm going to say what I want to say. He did comply essentially with the FCC's 7 dirty words or whatever. But besides that, he said, no, I'm going to say what I'm going to say and fuck you. And people tried to put him down his whole career. He could have easily changed or gave up or whatever. And I think he finally has now that he's a multi-billionaire and he's friends with all the Hollywood people. And I finally stopped listening to him about, maybe it's been 2 years now, because I couldn't listen to that shit anymore. And then plus his opinion about the police and how great that they are, and his political opinions, I couldn't listen to them anymore. But he usually would say and stand up to whoever. It didn't matter. I mean, he talked shit about his boss, but he didn't say a word about Donald Trump. You know, the arrogance when he would talk to Donald Trump, he didn't get off the phone and talk about how arrogant he was, or even when he was on the phone. Now, I don't know what he's saying now. I wonder what he's saying now, actually, on the radio, but I don't have Sirius right now. I had gotten rid of it. I could easily just get it back, but I'm not going to get it back to see what Howard Stern's saying about him. But he would never stand up to Trump. But Trump is an arrogant, the company, I shouldn't say this, but I guess you won't know who they are. But all the rooms at Trump Las Vegas are owned by another company. They're not owned by Trump, by a timeshare company that I may or may not work for. So, and that's public information. It's not like a secret that they're selling, you know, timeshares at Trump, which was obviously a failure because they initially sold them as condos. He just wanted that big fucking building with the Trump sign. And it's not a casino. I don't know why people thought it was a casino. I actually dated a girl, too, who had worked there before they had bought it, or bought the rooms, who had worked there as a maid, and I don't know if she still works there. But anyway, 83% are saying that they're not going to watch it if he's not on there. And of course he's going to be on there. Maybe this is just some big promotional bullshit. And it will hurt him if he's not on there neither. It makes him look like a little fucking baby because Roger Ailes said something about him. Or, again, I don't know the specifics, but it was some issue. He, all of a sudden, he's friends with this guy for years. And then he says one little thing. I'm not going to do your debate then. I mean, he's a fucking baby. Not only is he a arrogant fuck, and just because he's arrogant, he wants to be in the spotlight. That was the other thing. I mean, you have plenty of billionaires that nobody knows who the hell they are, and they like it that way. They don't want to be all over the news and all well known and all of that. Trump just wants the limelight, man. That's why he's even running for president. I don't think he really gives a fuck about anything other than, hey, look, I can get elected president. And look at this. And he even said, I was driving to work this morning and I had heard Glenn Beck, and they played like a bunch of clips of things he said. He said he will be the best president ever. And this is a guy who wants to add more, to ramp up the security state, to ramp up more troops, to spend more money. And the United States is spending more money than the top 8 nations combined. He wants to spend more money on the military. He wants more surveillance, more taking away of your privacy. And he even made a statement that, like, free speech, who cares about free speech? So the guy is just a really a douchebag. I was going to say, speaking of, for a segue, speaking of people that are not douchebags, there we go. There's my segue there. The one and only Shire dude, fresh off his job. I guess what do they close at 10 o'clock over there? Are you there? We had some.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, okay, because we had some issues a couple times, but we're good, right? You can hear me, okay? Cool,
Sounds
cool. Good. So, what do you guys close at 10?
We close at 9, and then we do closing stuff until
that's a
usually
while.
9:30. But lately we've been getting out late, so.
Of course, that's Eastern time, as he is coming to us live from New Hampshire. So we were talking about, I started with the story from Hillary, which I still haven't got back to, but it was just that Camille Paglia is saying that with Hillary focusing on feminism, how is she going to get the man vote? Now, coming into it, and I think we talked about this and you agree, because we did that show on Trump and Bernie Sanders, that all of this shit is rigged. Not rigged like they stacked the ballot box, but it's all decided. I mean, look at it already. You know, not the average person can even run for president. It's all decided by the parties and money, and you know whether it's one of those.
The system's already rigged for 2 parties. Like if you're a third-party candidate, you might as well forget it.
Well, not even just that, but I mean, even with. When you talk about whether it's the billionaires, the lobbyists, the Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations, whoever you believe runs things, I think most people that have half a brain know that it's not them that are running things.
Yeah, the vote is more of like this, like, and even the people who actually believe that are still like, oh, but I want to be a good citizen, and oh, I want my vote to count. It's more of a gesture anyway, and like it's so silly. The whole song and dance is a very silly thing to do.
Yeah.
Why not? And more than half of registered voters in the United States just stay home. They don't vote.
I know. I'm registered. I've never voted actually, and I was gonna vote. That's why I registered, but I want to take my registration back. Does it expire?
I don't think so.
I don't want to be.
Maybe you should change your registration to like the Cyber Party or something.
I know. Well, I'm an independent, so I'm just not a member of any party. But I still, don't want to be.
You registered independent.
Yeah. But I changed.
Always found your own party, right?
I changed my address anyway, so I'm just gonna ignore that
start
shit.
The David Bourne party and just be a party of one.
There you go, and I can have an actual party. But I was talking about I was talking about Hillary Clinton, but there was an article, and it's about a sentence long. So there's supposed to be a debate tomorrow. A Republican debate, and I don't know if you saw any of the Democratic debate that was on Monday. I'm trying to keep up with this shit because then it gives me more to talk about, and I really should at least have a good knowledge of what's going on with all this stuff, even though that to me it's not what I promote and it's not the point of the show, and to me it's just a joke, especially when you have Donald Trump running for fucking president. But so they said
it makes sense though. It makes sense to listen to the stuff and a little bit at least to have talking points with your friends around you who aren't completely on board with what we're saying.
Well, I don't really have any friends, so But
coworkers,
because everybody disagrees with me. I'm like I'm locked in an office, and no one really talks to me all day.
Oh, that's rough, man.
But essentially, my best friend is my guns. But essentially, that was a joke, of course. But essentially. He got in some fight with Roger Ailes, I guess, or Roger Ailes said one thing about him. I don't know the details of what happened, but I do know that they've been friends, I guess, because I was listening to Glenn Beck this morning on my way to work, and they've been friends for years. So it might be a publicity stunt, but the article said that 83% of the people that would watch the debate are not going to watch it. Now,
wow.
I had to clarify for people that are stupid. I'm getting right to the point. People that are stupid, as opposed to saying, well, people that don't understand. I'm just like people that are stupid. But that 83% doesn't mean 83% of the country. It just means 83% of the people that were going to watch it supposedly will not watch. I don't know why they just don't round it to 85 or 80.
Because Trump's refusing to do
83.
Is that what's going on?
Well, yeah, that now he's saying this is how much of a baby he is. So he's having an issue with Roger Ailes, who supposedly has been friends with for years, and he said something, I guess, that he didn't like, and now he's being a baby. I'm not going to do your debate now. And so he'll probably end up doing it. But they had played a bunch of clips from Donald Trump, and I had mentioned before that I could never stand him because he used to be on Howard Stern and talk about his dumb fucking show, The Apprentice, and how it was so great, and everybody complimented him at NBC, and everybody tells him how great the show is and how great he is and all of this shit. So I can't stand arrogant people. I hate that shit. And he had said that he is going to be the best president ever. I caught one of those. They did a montage of sound bites from Trump, and that was one of them, that he's going to be the best president ever. Wow. His ego, he is so arrogant, narcissistic, has a huge ego, and even with this, it's like he's used to just getting everything he wants.
Yeah, he's got this megalomaniac thing going on.
Yeah, and
it's crazy, and people are eating it up too. But I bet that this is going to end up being like, okay, you remember the last Republican debate that Rand Paul had to sit out, and then he was like doing stuff on the internet while the debate was going on. So he was like competing for airtime essentially with the debate, and people were like, they were doing like Twitter bombs and stuff for him, and like
That's a pretty good idea,
saying,
actually.
It is, and everyone was saying, "Oh, Rand Paul won the debate by not going." I bet you,
but
that
that's
Trump
totally
tries something
different.
Like this.
That's totally different than
how much you want to bet Trump tries something like online or something. Like if his campaign's got any kind of like oomph to it, they're gonna try something like that. You know?
But the difference with Trump is that he's leading, and Rand Paul has nothing to lose.
True.
So
true.
I think if Trump actually didn't show up, that it's gonna hurt him in the polls. I really think it would. Now with Rand Paul, it's like he has nothing to lose anyway. So it's well, let me try this. Maybe it will help me, maybe it won't. But what have I got to lose anyway?
Yeah.
But,
and of course, I think the point is moot because I'm a firm believer that neither Bernie nor Trump will get nominated by either party. I think there's no way they're too, in the party's eyes, extreme. Obviously, not really extreme because they really want more of the same. But in the party's eyes, they're too extreme, man.
Well, they're saying that.
Yeah.
Sorry, that Hillary, in this article by Camille Paglia, who is a feminist, but is more of a first wave feminist, and I don't know if you know about that wave.
Describe first wave for me real fast.
Well, because I actually learned this, to be honest, on air from Ellen when we did a show on feminism. So the first wave feminists were like the ones that were trying to get the right to vote. I mean, they wanted realistic fucking things.
Oh, okay.
Then you have it, even in this article, it talks about Hillary is rooted in second wave feminism. And then it's kind of, I guess I would equate it to, as the years kind of go by, like first wave feminism was first and then second was, maybe in the 60s. And then you have what's going on now, which is just getting ridiculous, where anything is, rape culture, or, if you look at a girl or something, you're like a deviant. It's just getting insane. But it's saying that she, as a career woman, that she's rooted in second wave feminism. But I think now she's trying to appeal. It also talks about her bond with her daughter, but more to, I guess it would be third wave feminism. But again, it's weird. I was just saying right before you came on too, it's kind of weird for me talking about this and then talking about, well, not that many men will vote for her or something like that, when I know that it doesn't matter because it's pretty much rigged anyway. And I think right now, so my approach, I guess, in talking about it, if I'm being realistic in how I think, is trying to predict who the powers that be, we'll just call them that, want to be president. And I would think it's either Hillary, or I'm actually starting to think maybe Trump, but I don't know that they can control him. However, his agenda is pretty much, I think, what agenda the powers that be want. I mean, I don't think anybody knows his agenda. They don't even look at it. They just listen to him and his stupid one-liners and insults and all that. But this is a guy, and I don't know how familiar you are with his agenda as well, but I think we talked about it, that he wants to increase security. He wants to increase the military.
He's talking about banning Muslims from entering the country.
Yeah, I mean, but he's more of a anti-privacy person. He even said, what is freedom of speech matter? So he's a scary fucking guy. Now,
Yeah.
if they
See,
can,
though, he's
go
like
ahead.
he's like overtly scary. He's like just yelling everything that he's thinking. It seems, and that's I think the scariest thing about it is that people still aren't turned off when they're doing that. And I guarantee you, most of those other Republican and even Democrat candidates they're thinking the same things that he's thinking. Like Jeb Bush came out against encryption just at the end of last year, saying that, oh well, we need to find an arrangement with Silicon Valley, and like he's saying like, oh, this encryption thing is a dangerous thing.
Yeah,
And then,
a lot
like,
of them are saying
the government
that.
needs backdoors. Yeah.
Yep, a lot of them are saying that they need to work. Hillary said the same thing. They said we need to work with Silicon Valley and we need to make sure that we're able to get the surveillance and information and all of this shit.
Yes,
So,
but if you do that, if you make a backdoor to all of encryption, especially for the government, you can't do it especially for the government because of hacktivists, right?
true, and that's what we're actually going to talk about tonight. But yeah, I don't know how that would work. I'm sure they'd be able to crack it, but maybe they set something up where, see, I don't know enough about the technology side when it comes to. I wish I did. The only thing I know about databases and pulling data, and I can write a little SQL, but I want to learn more about programming and stuff like that, because I think that, I said this at the beginning of the show, hacktivists, I think, are one of the most important activists that actually exist, and what they can do. I think if there was it gets to the point of no return, they are very important. But before we get to that, I have a couple other articles that we can go through real quick.
Sure.
Because I don't want to spend too much time here. So essentially, with Hillary, it's just that Camille Paglia is saying that she's going to have a hard time getting men's votes. I don't know that that's going to be the case. I would beg to differ, though. Just kind of generally thinking, did Obama have trouble getting white people to vote for him? Not really. Yeah, but that's a little different, because it's based on she's saying that she's promoting more feminism. I haven't really seen that, though. So, and again, I think it's rigged anyway. So if they want, I think Hillary will be the nominee, because that's probably where they're going.
Oh, yeah.
Most likely, I think Hillary will be the next president, but it would be better in the sense of all of the people that, have been talking about Obama and he's a communist or he's this or he's that, to have a Republican in there just to calm those people down. But either way, it would have to be a Republican, like a conservative Republican, and that's probably not going to happen. So again, it's most likely going to be Hillary, but if it's Trump, I won't be surprised neither, because I think he'll go along with a lot of the things that they want, and I think that's a lot of the things that he wants to do. And I don't think it matters who's in there. The same agenda is, whatever the agenda is, it's just going to continue. It's just like Alex Jones made a quote that Bush passed the baton to Obama, like one of those races, and that's really what it is. It just keeps advancing and advancing. But and I'll just go through these stories pretty quickly. A great-grandfather got run over by the police. He got a $3 settlement, a $3 million settlement, and the cops actually broke his neck. Oof. So that's nice. The governor of Maine, and maybe we can go into a little detail on this one. The governor of Maine thinks they should bring back the guillotine for drug offenders. So,
wow.
I don't know the context. Maybe it's. Let me bring up the article here because I didn't get a chance to go through all these in detail. But he's saying, this is from the Free Thought Project. But the governor, it's funny because they have a picture of him and then behind him is like a guillotine. And this isn't for murderers. It's for drug offenders. And he wants to hold public executions for drug offenders. So the governor of Maine is something LePage. Where did Paul LePage?
That'd be great for a postcard.
I thought Maine was
Like
more.
a nice picture of a guillotine.
I know, right? I thought Maine was more like when it came to drugs, that they were more
They
of a
got
tolerant
legal pot, at least medical
state.
pot, in the 70s. They were like one of the first on board for that. So it's actually pretty surprising.
Well, he insists that his words were distorted by the media in his comment. See, I was just reading that, and then this fucked me up. Was just a slip up.
Huh.
But that sounds pretty. That sounds pretty bad. I don't know how you fucked that up.
Yeah, did they put the word guillotine in his mouth? Because that's a pretty hard word to mistake for a different word. Right.
I guess it says apparently the recent proposal to jail drug traffickers for a minimum of 4 years wasn't quite draconian enough for LePage. That's pretty bad in itself. To have a mandatory minimum of 4 years.
Yeah, that's rough.
We could have public executions, and we could even have, we could have guessing. It says guessing with quotes, which hole it falls in. No further explanation was offered for the last part, but in the context, it would seem he was referring to executed person's decapitated head. Okay, so he didn't say it. This is what he said.
Okay.
But he said we could have public executions.
Yeah, like
and
that's
we
bad
could
enough.
even have, we could even have which hole it falls in. So that's close enough.
Yeah.
Ahead of his live town hall this evening on television, we get to talk with Maine Governor Paul LePage. Good morning, Governor. What can people expect when they tune in this evening? ABC 7 in Bangor.
Let me sorry about that. Basically, that's one of those pages okay, there we go. I had to turn you down as well. That was like a delayed, like the page started fucking playing.
Oh yeah, I get that all the time.
Sorry about that. So that was his thing there, but I guess there's a bill. It didn't say if it was passed or not, and I don't want to go back to that article because I don't want my fucking it to start playing again. But that it's a minimum 4 years for drug offenders. I'm sure it's, over a certain amount and distribution, but still, that's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, I think we went over the Vermont one when we were talking about Bernie on that other episode. When we were doing the Bernie Trump episode, I think it's like 2 years in Vermont. So
a 2 year minimum.
They have all these mandatory minimums out there.
Yeah, I remember
2 years for like distribution or something, like even the smallest amount.
They had them forever because in Massachusetts they used to have, if you were 1,000 feet within a school, and it didn't matter like if it was at night or anything. Yeah. And you would get an automatic 2 years, and I actually got arrested for it was possession within 1,000 feet within a school, and then they dropped the 1,000 feet, of course, so I didn't go to jail or anything, but it was like a mandatory 2 years. It's so fucking stupid. It's whatever. I don't want to get on a whole thing. Yeah, to save the children.
Yeah.
And when I was in high school, I always had it on me in school because I would sell to people in school. It was just weed. But but it's just ridiculous.
Ooh, for the children, just while it's on my mind, before I forget here, speaking of for the children, there's a bill in the New Hampshire, I want to say it's the New Hampshire House, where they're changing mandatory, they're changing compulsory attendance for school from you don't have to go starting at age 16 instead of 18. So school is no longer mandatory for 17 and 18-year-olds, which I think is really interesting. We should do a show on compulsory
Didn't they
education.
always have that?
New Hampshire?
Because
Not
most states they have that you can drop out at 16.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess New Hampshire doesn't have it yet.
So they're
But it was,
behind. Yeah, I still, I'm not anti-New Hampshire. As you know, I grew up, right outside of New Hampshire. Well, not that close, but close. I mean, Boston. It was an hour and a half away or something.
Yeah, people joke that Manchester is like a suburb of Boston, so it's pretty close.
I mean, well, it was closer to get to New Hampshire lines, I guess. But where we went, we always went to wherever the amusement parks were. I don't remember where the fuck they were, but they were further. They were like a couple hours. And I went to Hampton Beach before. One of I think it was Memorial Day weekend one year. I think it was 99. I went to on Memorial Day weekend. We went to Hampton Beach, and there were just tons of people everywhere. We tried to get a hotel there or a motel. I couldn't even get one. But anyway, we tried to get it that day. But a cop was fired after, this is also from the Free Thought Project, was fired after helping a man with a complaint against the police. So he helped a man who came in to file a report against the police because they did something, they violated his rights or whatnot, and then they fired the cop.
Wow.
So I'm sure he has a lawsuit there. I'm afraid to open the article because I don't want another thing playing. I think this one was okay though when I looked at it earlier. But yeah, I mean, so that just shows how the cops are. I mean, they don't want any complaints made against them, of course. I mean, not only do they... Usually they just dismiss them anyway, but I guess they don't even want them made. So this cop that helped this guy, I guess he was a rookie cop.
Uh-huh.
So they had... Either they threatened to fire him or they fired him. Because what I got was, okay, they threatened to... No, he was fired. Cop fired for... I'm on the wrong article here. Cop fired for threatening... Oh, I'm sorry. I got this whole fucking story wrong. It was the other thing. It was the other way around. I thought this was a cop helping him. Cop fired for threatening to kill a man who, for helping someone file a police complaint.
Wow.
So he was a rookie cop. At least they fired the cop. So I got that story wrong. So yeah, they fired the cop for, he threatened to kill somebody. It was probably against him is probably why.
Uh-huh.
But he had threatened to... He was off duty and not in uniform at the time, but did identify himself as a police officer. So that's always nice.
And when people complain about me at my job, I'm just like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. You're not like, hey, I'm going to kill you.
That's pretty intense.
I'm going to throw some hot coffee on you. And I need to open this article because I'm not clear on this, but there was something where teens opting for porn instead of sex. I don't know what that meant. Initially it sounded like that they want to be in porn. But I think what it meant is that instead
They'd
of
rather
having
watch
sex,
porn.
yes, they're watching porn and playing with themselves. Why that's a story? I mean, really, isn't that just, you know, something that goes on anyway? Is it? Yeah, there's a
sounds like middle school to me. That doesn't sound like a news story.
See, this is where your money goes, right? They do studies on all of this ridiculous shit. So this was a study that teens, even adults, opting for porn less risky than actually having sex. Well, yeah, obviously it is less risky than having sex. Why you need to do a story on it, I don't know.
Scientists have just discovered this.
I know. It says that it's they're choosing pornography because it is less risky than actually having sex, according to a blockbuster new survey of porn in America. In the study, the porn phenomenon, the only area of growth area, that doesn't sound written very well. I'm sure there's some growth area when they turn the porn on, of why young and older men and women age are turning to porn is because they believe a picture or video is safer than the real thing. Well, no fucking shit. I mean, that's news? But
it's,
also,
it's more time efficient. You don't have to buy at dinner.
Right. It's cheaper. But it is also one of the key reasons teens aged 13 to 17 use porn. Being less risky than actual sex is higher motivation among both teens and older adults for different reasons. Presumably, said the study, portions of which were provided to secrets from the Barna Group. The full report will be released in April. So this is like a big fucking study on people having less sex and watching more porn, which I guess is good for porn, because I think most people would agree, except fanatic religious people, like fanatic Christians would say, no, you're well, I don't know, because if you're underage, I don't know what the fuck they would say. But, usually they're supposed to say, I read a fucking, in my ethics class, I had even read something that said, technically, you're stopping or almost having an abortion, sort of, if you choose to have sex at another time, because it will be a different baby. So, for example, say you're about to have sex and you're trying to get that person pregnant, and then you end up not having sex and then have sex like 2 days later. Technically, that won't be the same person. So that person was just aborted. I don't know. It was with ethics, you can, it's like lawyers, like you can twist it any way you want. So
whoa, and then the logical conclusion of that is that you should just be having sex all the time, otherwise you're aborting millions and millions of babies,
right? Essentially. I guess
it kind of blows my mind.
So same thing if you use a condom, but it's always, if you think of it, it's always going to be a different, it based on the timing, it's not going to be the same baby.
Yeah.
So, it was kind of this is years and years ago that we read this, but it was essentially, we went through ethical arguments on abortion, and some were for and some were against, and I don't know that one was necessarily against. It was just making a point that I think it was for abortion, because it was saying, well, what's the fucking difference? I mean, even if you have sex at a different time, you essentially not aborted a baby, but you didn't create someone that could have been created because you waited till a different time. I don't know. So anyway, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we will talk all about hacktivists and hacktivism, which I think is a really important topic. At the beginning of the show, I had mentioned the three kind of biggest, or at least that are in my mind right now, the most important things, assuming that things go the way I think they're going to go. So I'll mention that again when we come back. So I'm going to play a couple clips, and when we get back, we'll talk all about hacktivists. And you can check out Shire Dude at shiredude.com. If you'd like to call in, you can call it at 702-470-7664. Again, that's 702-470-7664. We now have a dedicated phone. So that is also the business line. So if you have any other questions, complaints, want to come on the show, anything, you can call that number and leave a message. And if you'd like to Skype into the show, you can send a contact request to Nonpartisan Liberty for All and just let us know your name, where you're calling from, and what you'd like to talk about. So we will be right back after this.
Anonymous is one of the biggest online vigilante groups. Members hack into companies and governments. You've seen them wearing masks in protest. They prefer a life in the shadows. But this morning, a former top member breaks his silence. He helped carry out cyber attacks that caused up to $50 million in damages. Only on CBS This Morning, Hector Monsegur opens up about his arrest and switching sides.
Tinkering with the system and learning how it functioned, I was able to escape from the current situation we were going through.
So you were self-taught?
Absolutely. You know, everybody around me were into something, but it wasn't computers.
From the moment Hector Monsegur got his hands on a used desktop, he had a passion for computers. But for the boy raised by his grandmother in this New York City housing project, it was the internet that provided a gateway to something bigger. How did you learn about hacking?
You know, we were poor, so I needed to find a way that would be cheap or free so that I could be able to access the internet without being a burden to my grandmother.
According to court documents, at first he stole credit card information, selling the numbers or using them to pay his own bills. Monsegur eventually adopted the name Sabu and joined a mysterious group of hackers about to take off. Tell me about Anonymous.
Anonymous is an idea where we could all be anonymous. We could all work together as a crowd, united. We could rise and fight against oppression.
We are anonymous. We are legion.
As Anonymous grew, Monsegur helped take the movement to a worldwide level. At the height of the Arab Spring in Tunisia, he hijacked the Prime Minister's website, posting this letter in support of protesters.
It was amazing. I saw finally I was able to do something that contributed to society, regardless if I was at home in the Lower East Side, in the projects, behind a computer.
Monsegur admits he was behind thousands of hacks. While working with Anonymous and his own offshoot group, Lulsec, some of his targets included Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, Sony, and the U.S. Senate. Hacking's illegal.
Yeah.
Were you worried about getting caught?
Not necessarily.
Because you thought you were better than they were?
After you're hacking for so long, you reach a point of no return. Regardless if you fear that they're going to get you one day, it's too late.
In June 2011, Monsegur led a brazen attack on the website of InfraGard, an FBI affiliate. Days later, a team of FBI agents showed up at the same apartment where he grew up.
So they said, well, we know who you are. We know what you're doing. And we also know you have 2 kids in the house. You make the decision. So it's clear as day they had an understanding that my weakness
was your kids.
Was the kids.
He immediately chose to work as an FBI informant to avoid the possibility of serving up to 26 years in prison. For the next 3 years, he continued communicating with fellow hackers, only now every keystroke was logged. FBI says that you helped them prevent more than 300 cyber attacks.
Yeah.
The military, NASA.
I was able to intercept attacks that were happening against the government and share it with the government so they could fix these issues.
He also played a key role in the arrest of a group of co-conspirators, 7 of whom pleaded guilty, including the FBI's most wanted cybercriminal, Jeremy Hammond. Some fellow hacktivists saw Monsega's cooperation as the ultimate betrayal, labeling him a rat. Did you take any pride in giving these guys up?
It wasn't a situation where I identified anybody. I didn't point my fingers at nobody. I
You're
did not provide.
You're rationalizing this.
No, I'm giving you reality. My cooperation entailed logging and providing intelligence. It didn't mean. Can you please tell me the identity of one of your mates?
Suppose they'd said that.
How? We're anonymous.
Monsega's talent and keen eye highlighted vulnerabilities in the critical systems that keep America online. Threats, he says, still exist.
And in all reality, there is no security. The hackers could break right into the airport. The phone systems, obviously. The water supply system, shut them down.
Scary to me.
It should be an inspiration to the American government to focus on our infrastructure. We have a sickening reliance on security contractors, the companies that Edward Snowden worked for.
Right.
Who will guard the guards, Charlie? Our security, the people we pay for, the people we hire with tax dollars, are not really secure themselves.
Earlier this year, Monsega was sentenced to time served. On the day his cooperation was made public, Anonymous suggested it was indestructible, tweeting, "Anonymous is a hydra, cut off one head and we grow 2 back." Monsega's family was threatened, and he remains cautious. Would you do any of this differently?
If I were to go back, I would remain a political hacktivist. Activist, hacker. However, I would stay away from Anonymous.
Because?
It was just too much publicity.
Can you imagine that if you had not gone one direction, but had ended up in Silicon Valley?
Well, that's the problem. I didn't end up in Silicon Valley. I had no connections to the world. And I guarantee you, though, had I made it to Silicon Valley, had I met you when I was 18, and you probably could have pointed me in the right direction,
right,
you and I would be having a completely different discussion.
Clearly bright, smart guy, Charlie.
Self-taught.
Yeah, and talking to you very candidly. I love the question he asked you, who will guard the guards, Charlie? And I'm surprised he's talking so candidly this way.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, I guess he was outed in those legal documents in the trial, but still, yeah.
When did you know the FBI was on to you?
Several days before, probably several days, a couple weeks before my arrest, because I would come downstairs, take the kids to school, and there's a random Con Edison truck parked in front of my building.
Yes.
How often do you see a Con Edison truck parked in front of the Lower East Side? And then you have random mail. You know,
it should have been an indicator right there.
Well, you know what's the greatest indication?
What?
The mailman was hanging out with the Con Edison guy in front of my building.
Yeah.
It's kind of random. Yeah. So I knew something was off.
But what choices did you have?
It was too late. There wasn't much choice.
They knew you, and they knew what you had done.
Absolutely. I mean, what could I have really done? Walked up to them and say, "Hey guys, I know why you're here."
Well, you could have went out the back door, I guess.
Well, yeah, I guess so. But still, I would have been on a run, and that's not a good life. Plus, I had 2 kids, so it was a tough situation.
And then there was the night the agent showed up at your door.
Yeah.
Remember that for me.
Well, it started off with me walking the kids home from school in the morning. I woke up. We just had completed like this really, really crazy hack the night before. Walked the kids to school. And on my way back, I'm noticing there's random people parked in random cars, and nothing makes any sense. Never seen these people before. Never seen these cars before. And there was one instance where one of the guys was looking at me as I'm walking by. He's reading his newspaper. He's peeking at me, and when I look at him, he completely just gets lost and drops his paper and is looking around, he's fidgeting around the car. I already knew something was happening. So I went home. I cleaned up the place. Got ready. I took a nap. Went straight to sleep. Around 3, 4 o'clock comes around. I go pick up the kids. Bring the kids home. Drop them off at church. And I did like a little shopping spree with them. I had some money in my pocket. I took them to buy like $200 worth of coloring books and toys. And I dropped them off to church with a family friend. And I said, hey guys, I'll catch you later. I'll be right back. I already knew what was happening. I went home. I went to the store first. And I grabbed a 6-pack of beer, which I don't drink. And I went upstairs and I celebrated with my brother. I told him, they're coming. Just be prepared. Stay in the room and don't say nothing and don't move. I don't want you to get shot if they think, you're a threat. So around 8-ish, 9-ish, around that time, it's already dark, and they knock on my door and they say police. Mind you, we're not doing anything illegal, so I'm pretty sure, well, besides me, I'm pretty sure it wasn't the police at the door. I said, all right, guys, hold on a moment. I walked to the door. Before I walked to my door, I spoke to my brother. I said, listen, just chill. Relax. Let me handle this. I go to the door, and here we are. We have a whole bunch of FBI agents in the hallway. I remember it was at least 14, 15 of them. They were up and down the staircase doing verticals. We had some guys in suits in the corner, around the corner of my hallway. And, they basically pulled me out into the hallway and they said, we're glad you opened the door in time because we're about to smash it in. I said, all right, so what's the problem?
That's what you said?
Yeah.
Why are you here?
Yeah, like, what's up? How can I help you, So they said, well, we know who you are, right? We know who you are. We know what you're doing. And we also know you have 2 kids in the house. So, to keep it simple, you could either cooperate with us, just come downtown with us, you'll be back in the morning, or we're going to call ACS, we'll take the kids away. It's your call. You make the decision. So it's clear as day they had an understanding that my weakness
was your kids.
Was the kids.
You've got 2 beautiful kids. You came clean.
Yeah, absolutely.
You served some time in the prison.
Yeah.
Now you're out. Now you're on national television.
Awesome.
And the scary thing, and perhaps the lesson ought to come out of this, beyond what happened to you and beyond the decision you had to make, is how vulnerable we are.
Absolutely. And I tried my best to expose that reality. Tried my best to tell people there's no security. We are in a really bad state. If you look at the history of what we was doing, especially my team, we focused on hacking into security contractors, the same people I mentioned, the same companies I mentioned. Why would we hack into, a Mantech or Raytheon? Why would we do that? To prove a point. How can we say there is no security if we cannot prove that there is no security? So what's the best way to prove there is no security? Well, let's hack a security company. Let's hack the same company that enjoyed $1 billion worth of tax dollars last year for providing security to our infrastructure.
You are listening to Nonpartisan Liberty for All Radio with your host, Dave Bourne.
And we are back here live with Shire Dude, who's live from New Hampshire. I noticed that that clip that I have to play, I have to test it because I noticed that and this just might be coincidence, that on some of the ones that I played it on, that I got flagged. It didn't stop it, but it something came up on it, like a copyright or something. Not enough to block it or ban it or anything, but just like a little something. It might have had nothing to do with that. It might have had to do with something else, and it was just a coincidence. So now I'm scared to play it because I want to. What I'm trying to do ultimately, obviously, is make some money off of YouTube. Although I'm not getting enough listens off YouTube yet, but at some point. But so I'll have to just test that and just do 5 minutes one day on a test file and see if anything comes up. But anyway, We are back with Shire. Dude, that clip that I had played during the break, that was the Hacktavist Sabu. And I watched a documentary on Hacktavist, and they had talked about him within the documentary. He was, as it said, basically he had snitched on everybody, but what he did, because they didn't know anybody's names, as they said, but they had him keep working. So what they did, and they didn't really talk about this there, that he kept, he was gone for like a month, and then he came back. And then when he came back, that's where they monitored everything he did and were able to arrest, I think one of the guys they arrested, Jeremy Hammond. I don't know a lot about him, but he was a hacktivist as well. And he got 10 years in jail. So that's really what they did. One of the other things they did that was kind of strange is the first thing he put when he had came back was he told people to go to Occupy Wall Street. And it makes you think that perhaps the government, that was some type of, not all government, that a lot of people that were part of it were just regular people and trying to protest Wall Street, but that they had government operatives involved in that too. And pretty much they have government operatives or political party operatives. Like I was talking yesterday about Black Lives Matter and that whole, if you want to call it a movement, and how that basically took all of the attention, for the most part, away from the police, and the police being the issue, and then focusing on Black Lives Matter. And I know that a lot of that has to do with the government and who's funding them, obviously. And when these groups get that big and get that much attention, 99% of the time it's because they're being funded by some political agenda or political operative that is funding them, and that is getting them all this news coverage and stuff like that. And usually that's the case, and the government gets involved, and they have their operatives involved running the whole fucking thing in the first place. So I don't know what your opinion is on that.
Any
Shire
movement,
but
any movement can be co-opted.
Yeah,
and we've had, since the civil rights movement, there have been agents kind of like slipping in and trying to be one of them, and then provoke from the inside. So,
yeah, usually
it's not really surprising.
At least now, when something gets that big, it's usually because it's being funded by the fucking government. Seriously. I guess there's movements that get that big on their own, but there's not a lot. There's usually, small movements and, local things that people try to do. But if you're talking about a national movement,
yeah. And any activist movement has like almost zero funding. So any amount of funding is like a big deal, any kind of revenue stream. So I'd say if you're in a movement like that, definitely be really wary of where the money is coming from and, where's it going?
No, definitely. And the same with ISIS I had watched a documentary on ISIS, and one of the guys, they were interviewing him, and he said, why did he join ISIS? And he said, because they pay better than the job that he had. So who's funding ISIS? I know they say, well, they're getting gas from or oil from what was Turkey or something. Mm-hmm. But no, I think the U.S. government is funding them, and that's why they have all the money they do.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, regarding hacktivism, what I was going to say before the break is that along with peaceful parenting, I think is something that's very important because of not just peaceful parenting, but the taking your kids out of school, not pushing that discipline that essentially hands your kids over to the government when they're 18. That and the other things I talked about regarding self-defense and non-compliance. And the other thing that I think is just as important, and I think all three can kind of go together, although the parenting thing is that's a long-term thing. That's something that you're not going to see results from, until 15 to 20 years later. But this is what I had said at the beginning of the show, that three of the most important things, I think, are those two and hacktivists. Because one of the things that the government has, and again, this is assuming a worst case scenario where the government, totally took over everything and you had no freedom. One of their biggest or one of the most challenging things would be, how would you fight against their technology? How would you be able to combat their technology? And that's where I think hacktivists are so important in what they can do. And, a lot of them are just hacking into websites and getting information. But there's a lot of other things you can do as well.
Well, you can also disseminate information, plant the information on those popular websites.
Right. Well, yeah. I was, assuming that too, that when they're getting that information, that they're also giving out that information. But I'm saying, I'm sure that, they could hack into maybe even certain weapon systems, to drones, to things like that.
Oh man, that'd be great. Can you imagine the cessation of the drone war? Yeah, at least for like an hour or two,
and that, or crash the systems that control them, or things like that. Now, obviously, the U.S. government is trying to do whatever they can, and these are a lot of these people. They actually want working for the government. So I think it's a constant battle, in a sense, between people that actually believe in true freedom and liberty and ones that don't give a fuck and would just, join the NSA or something like that and go work for them. Now, I know there are hacktivists that do work for corporations and stuff like that, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think they should use their talents during the day, to go work for those companies. But then at the same time, in their free time, go out there and, I guess, I don't know what I'd call it, but do their activism, I guess. And, there's been a lot of things that they've been able to hack into. So I think that they are one of the most important activists that exists, because it's a skill that not a lot of people have, or at least not enough people have, I think.
Yeah.
I
mean, most people aren't even basic computer savvy, let alone, hacking into other people's computer savvy.
And they're able to do a lot to be able to get all this information and share that information. Now, of course, a lot of that comes at a price. They have to be careful about being anonymous. But I think if it came down to the government, like I said, if we were living in a Nazi Germany type situation, that they would be one of the most important activists that would exist, because they would be able to combat a lot of the things that the government was doing.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's an interesting kind of like morality thing. A lot of people they see these hacktivists as being, they're dangerous and they're stealing information. But when you come from where we're coming from, it's like, first of all, you can't steal information that's on the internet. Like actual theft, it hasn't occurred.
Yeah, I mean, there's been people that have been charged with sharing information or taking information that was already public information.
Yeah. Exactly. Like using
and disseminating
using a
it.
torrent or like copying something. It shouldn't be a crime at all, because it's not theft. Like theft is like intentionally depriving someone of something tangible.
Well, like
obviously.
basically what Aaron Swartz did, who allegedly committed suicide, which I think that's bullshit that the government murdered him, but he basically, from what I understand it, is took all this information was public, but he went back and got all the archives of things that were posted by MIT or something like that. But technically all the information was public anyway. But he did it in a way where he connected his computer to their servers and pulled all that information. So at the most, I mean, you want to charge him with like breaking and entering or something, stupid, but he was facing 35 years in prison.
Yeah.
So that's why, I even call this the quote unquote war on hacktivists, because this is something that you don't really hear about in government media at all. They've gone after a bunch of people, and some of them have gotten, 10 plus years in jail, and you don't hear about it. It's not something.
Yeah, that's what stinks about being a hacktivist, is you can't be loud about your activism since you got to be anonymous. And so when they disappear, who's going to hear about it if they're not being loud, if they're not being in the public eye?
That's a good point as well. Yeah. That if a person is anonymous, and then I mean, I think at that point, hopefully, once they're charged with something, okay, they need to get out there and get their name out there, and I think they do. But even still, I think that
at that point it's like too little, too late.
I think they purposely don't cover it because they want to. I think the government wants to focus on it themselves. Like they even have all of these cyber crime, units and things like that. So the government themselves, they want to focus on it. But I don't think they want the information out there in government media. And I'll tell you why. Because if people, when they look at this stuff, like, this kid's facing 35 years for, basically doing nothing, doing something that probably at the most he should get probation. So that's why I think they don't want people to hear about this stuff. Now, I don't know that would make a difference, because all the stuff that goes on, what really makes a difference anyway? Does anybody doing anything about it? Not really. I mean, except for, the people that are already talking about this stuff. But I think that they try to hide it as much as possible and keep it away from government media, and you hear about it, on more independent type sites, like even the Ross Ulbricht trial. I don't know if that was in
a lot of that coverage was coming from like, YouTube personalities.
And that was a huge thing. So you look at something like that, and it's like they want to keep it as secret as possible. Now, at the same time, you would think people would care, but all this other shit that goes on that's public, people don't seem to care anyway. So does it really matter? Is it going to make a difference? Probably not. But
the whole like living in public thing. I saw when Adam Kokesh got arrested at the Smokedown prohibition. You remember that? This was before I moved
for
to New
resisting
Hampshire.
arrest. Was that the arrest?
Yeah, he was arrested.
Yeah, I
for
saw the
resisting
video.
Arrest. And there was video of it out like the same day.
Yeah, I'd seen the video.
Multiple angles. I think that really helped him. I think that helped Adam get through his whole jail process because he heard about it because the news of it was getting into the jail where he was being held, and people started fundraising for his defense and everything, and I definitely think that it helps to be as loud and public as possible. Obviously, the guy's got he had his own show at the time, and people were talking about him and listening to him like on the regular. And for someone like if he was a hacktivist and he got arrested doing something like that, people wouldn't have been tuned in. I definitely think it makes a big difference just being as public as possible. And it's interesting. There was one guy in this documentary, the one you were talking about, you watched, called Anonymous Hacktavist and Hacktivism. It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
There's the one guy on there who's like being loud and in public and on all these news things. I forget his name. But he's the guy with the messy hair who does drugs.
Wheeze. His real name's Andrew Oppenheimer or something, but they call him Weave. Or not Wheeze, Weave.
It starts with a W. I don't remember what
it's
it is.
Weev.
Weave. Yeah, it's
so
Weave. There it is.
I think it's pronounced Weave.
Yeah. So that guy is kind of loud and in public and on the news. And if they try to do something to him, if they try to arrest him for some, bogus thing, everyone would know about it.
But unfortunately, they did, and he went to jail for a year and a half.
Yeah.
So
but at least people knew about it, and he didn't disappear forever. So big difference. I don't know. I don't think I'd be able to do it if someone wanted me to do some sort of activist project, or if I got the idea on my own or whatever, but I had to be under in secrecy. I don't think I'd do it. I think the stakes are too high for me, and I'm glad there's people out there doing what I definitely wouldn't do.
I mean, I don't want to say if I do it or not really publicly
for all you
on
know,
radio,
we could be doing it right now.
But no, I'm definitely not doing it right now because I don't know how. But if I did, that doesn't mean that I wouldn't. If I knew how to do it,
That's kind of like
probably
with great
would.
power comes great responsibility kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're a doctor and you retire, are you putting people at risk? Because you can save lives, but you're choosing not to.
Because what they're doing, some of the stuff they're doing is just fucking. Like the Wheeze guy he called himself a troll. Like he would go and like fuck with people and stupid shit like that, and I mean, he can do whatever he wants to do, but it's almost like a waste of his talent going and doing some of that stuff. And I know it's fun for them and it's funny and whatever, but it's like it's a waste of, at least if he's doing it, hacking. But it's more like hacking, what do you call it? Like public forums and shit like that. Like shit you're not going to get in trouble for anyway. Like he was doing a lot of that stuff, I know. And like I said, he called himself a troll. But I think what he got in trouble for was it had to do with hacking AT&T, but from what I understood, it was still stuff that you could get
Yeah, anyone
like,
could have gotten it.
Yeah, and
it wasn't even really a hack. It was just kind of
right.
like a simple like web browser malfunction. Not malfunction. It was like a feature of their website. It was really stupid.
Yeah, and he went to jail for like a year and a half over that.
Yeah.
So they're really, because one of the things that I was thinking when I was watching that documentary was about how much they're going after hacktivists, how much more they are than, say, like somebody like me who just, I mean, one, I don't have a lot of listeners, but say I did, that they are targeting hacktivists a lot more than they are just people that are speaking out, because they're really going, after them, like putting all these resources, and they're using the whole stacking thing where they stack, charges, and they're putting them in jail for years. And then some of the things that they do, or some of the punishments or whatever you want to call them, is that when they get out of jail, they can never touch a computer again, or like certain things like that. And it's crazy. It's crazy that you could even do that. That after they get out of jail, that you could have them have some kind of rule that they can't, touch a computer again.
Yeah, that's insane.
Now, the guy in the interview who was the snitch, really, he was talking about, we're helping because we're getting through the security of a lot of these places to let them know that, like, their security is bad. But that's not what hacktivism is about to me. To me, it's about getting information that, say, the government's trying to hide and that they are keeping from the people, and getting that information and getting it out there and sharing that information. Not, trying to see, their security's not that good.
Yeah, I mean, it protects people either way. I mean, obviously the government's up to more dastardly things than AT&T, but if you figured out somehow that, and this is usually what a hacker would do, like they would just kind of tamper with the security system, and if they broke into it somehow, usually they like stumble into it. They're like, oh, well, now I'm morally obligated to tell people about this big security flaw. So I don't even think it's like they really like seek out security flaws, like they're trying to start some sort of free security firm. It's just that they know so much about, hacking and whatnot. They're probably practicing on businesses, Wells Fargo or whatever. And if they do break in, all of a sudden they feel this moral obligation. Like, I think I would feel that same moral obligation if I found out there was some big security flaw in a service that millions of people were using. I would want to tell people about that.
Well, I wouldn't want to tell them, because then it implicates me in hacking into their system.
True. See, that's why they stay anonymous, So,
I mean, what about this part of it? Should hacking technically be illegal? So let's think of it outside the internet, right? Let's think of like a house, right? So obviously, to break into a house, you have to somehow, most people have their door locked. What if they don't? So their door's unlocked. What if their door is open? So you have a couple things there. And I think, say, with the Weave guy, he almost was like somebody's house door was open, and, he walked in and didn't really take anything, just observed what he saw and said, I was walking by, this person's door was open. I went and looked in to see if everything was okay, and then I left. I mean,
yeah,
no,
that's exactly
seriously.
what it was.
I mean, it's almost what it was. But there's a difference between somebody's door being locked and you bashing down their door, like the police love to do, and then going in there and stealing their money or gold or TV or something like that. But it's not really stealing in the sense that you're if anything, you're copying something.
Yeah.
And are you breaking in? Like what? Because think of this, right? Say like, I have a simple website. I'm sure anybody could hack into my website and they could change, say, my layout, right? Like the layout of my website.
Sure.
So that would be going in and kind of fucking with stuff,
rearranging the furniture.
I guess. Or say they took, what could you actually take that wouldn't still be there? So that's kind of where do you draw the line there of, is it like breaking into a safe and looking at, like President Obama and his kill list? Like, that's right, I got a kill list right next to my bed. It's in a safe in there. And if you break in, you can read my kill list. And they read his kill list and wrote down everybody that was on it. How would you compare what people are doing as hacktivists or even hacking in general? And I kind of talked about this at the beginning too before you came on. Like, there's a difference between people I would call hackers that actually go and do this on purpose to rob people or to steal credit card information or to break into a bank and somehow transfer money into their name, things like that, compared to actually just trying to get information that the government is supposed to or should be publicly releasing anyway. So
Yeah.
if I guess if you had an analogy or a way to look at this in a real world situation outside of a computer, how would you look at it?
It's just a matter of scarcity. If you can't steal an item that has zero scarcity, like if I'm outside and I see a Ferrari and I can just touch the Ferrari with my hand and make an identical copy and drive away in my identical copy, then it's not theft. I haven't stolen anything. I've just, if anything, I've gained something for myself and not affected you at all.
But if it's secret information, so if, and I don't believe in IP and all of that stuff. However, if you don't release something out there, like if you have plans to do something, once you release something out there, I think people should be able to do what they want with it. Or
Absolutely.
Say music. So you create a song, but say you have that song on your computer where you believe that nobody can access it, which in theory, nobody should be able to access it. You have anti-whatever software.
Sure. Yeah, put up safeguards.
Right. So in theory, nobody should be able to access it. So, but once you release that song out there, as far as I'm concerned, it's in the public arena. I don't think there's any protections that should protect you from somebody copying your song or doing
absolutely
whatever
not.
to
Especially, if it's in a digital medium at all, even if you just kind of hum the song in a room that you thought was empty and you turn around and your friend's behind you, he didn't steal the song. He just heard you.
Right.
You just screwed up.
even if, never mind computers, if you release a CD and you're putting it out there, and that's kind of my philosophy on IP, is that once you put something out there, you're putting it out there for other people to do whatever they want with. And that's how I view it. Like if you put a picture out there, if you put a song out there, if you put whatever you put out there, I believe that, you know, people have the right to it. And there was a statement that somebody made, and I think it was fucking Bill Maher. Don't ask me why I was watching Bill Maher, because sometimes I want to punch him in the face.
Because you're a masochist, apparently.
Because what? Yeah.
Yeah.
But somebody said something about how the government, compared to private business, that private business doesn't do things better than the government. And maybe in some cases they don't, but the difference is, and I think in most cases they do, and this is why. Because when it comes to government, there's no competition. There's nobody else to take it and do it better. It's only the government that's able to do it. And that's really the difference. You can take a company and say there's only one company that's making something, and then there's the government, and no one else has gotten around to making it yet. Yeah, the government could be doing a better job right now, but what's going to happen is another company is going to come along, and they're going to do a better job than both the government and the existing company, and people are going to buy it from them. So how I got into that, I totally forget. Well, the same thing with IP. I think that it comes down to, or copyright, whoever can do it the best and the most efficiently is the person or company that really
that should be doing it.
To be exactly. Even though
it's really like that's all IP is just a block against competition. It's just another BS, bureaucratic line of red tape to stop your competitors.
It also stops innovation, because what happens is somebody might come out with something, and if you could use that, you could take it to a whole nother level where, and this could be in something that's really important, like music and shit like that. Okay, it's entertaining, but really in the big scheme of things, is it all that important? It's important in that, hey, I got something to listen to, I get some fucking entertainment. But you could be talking about the medical field and things that, we still haven't cured cancer in how many fucking years, and it's still the number one killer. If you take all the cancers, it kills, I believe, like 500,000 people a year. And you got Obama talking about, the 8,000 people killed by guns. I mean, seriously, give me a fucking break. So you could have, I'm not saying that, I think they already have a cure for cancer, because there was some guy in the 40s or 50s who they did something with his information, or wouldn't, the FDA wouldn't approve it, or you can't tell me with all that fucking money and all that time and all these people working on this, and really all it is, and granted, I'm not a doctor, what do I know? And I realize that there's more to it than that. So I'm not trying to say that, it's an easy thing to cure a fucking disease, but I'm just trying to simplify it for the listeners and what I know. But it's just cells that are mutated. That's really all it is, from what I understand. If you know more, please feel free to add that. But from what I understand, it's just cells that are mutated. And as far as where it is, like somebody having breast cancer compared to pancreatic cancer, it's the same thing. It's malignant cells. It's cells that are, all fucked up, but it just happens to be in a different place. But it's the same thing. I don't know if I just read about it once. I didn't read a lot about it, but that's my understanding of cancer.
I mean, I think the main problem with curing cancer is it's cells, it's your mutated cells, and so getting something to attack the cells, it obviously confuses those cells for your other cells, and then you're essentially attacking yourself to kill the cancer.
But it's hard to, when you look at that. It
is hard to imagine, though. All that funding,
right. Unlimited.
Countless charities for how many years?
Unlimited resources, essentially, when it comes to cancer. You have unlimited resources. And, I don't know how many years that they've been working on this and they still can't. And one of the reasons that I had brought up is I think the medical industry would fall apart if it wasn't for all the money they made from cancer treatment, because it's a huge chunk of the medical industry.
Sure.
So if somebody did come up with a cure for cancer, do you really think that any company that has anything to do with cancer treatment would want that to come out? No, it's, you know, you'd like to think, of course, there's too many people that unfortunately, and maybe it's because for some people it's because they've had just all good experiences or they think all people are good. But I definitely think if it was a company that specialized in cures for cancer and they came up with or that specialized in cancer treatment and they came up with a cure for cancer, that you're not going to see that. And the person that created it would probably be paid off, you know, millions. And that's the whole thing with patents. The government can come in and buy up a patent and lock it away. And they've done it. I'm not saying with cancer, but
it is a kind of interesting, and I know there's got to be some sort of effect name for this, but it is like a profit incentive effect. That's really strange. Where if you're a company that sells rape whistles, and you know your main goal is to reduce the rate of rape, and then you're too good, and then you make rape completely extinct and no one is raping anymore, then your company ceases to exist and you no longer make money selling the rape whistles. So you want to reduce the rate, but then actually your profit incentive is to keep the rate at a steady steady pace or increase.
Yeah. See, I could never, or at least the attackers.
Right.
But I could never, you know, do something like that. Even in the jobs that I've had where I've automated things, where I've worked a lot with automation and stuff like that, knowing that, well, you know, if I run out of things to automate, then there's nothing for me to do. But then it's just time for me to move on to something else. It's not, you know, you have to move on with the times. And I know we're kind of getting a little off topic here, but that would be something that I'd like to see some hacktivists try to get some information on, to be honest. Something like that, some medical information, or some of these cancer treatment centers. And, you know, all this information is out there. And there's so much more of it because of the internet. Really, that's not I think their goal, because I think if you see, not talk to these people directly, but if you did, but just seeing them on a interview or in a documentary, that the majority of them seem to stand for more for openness and information from the government, and the government being transparent and giving out this information instead of being so secretive, trying to hide all of this information. Now, there's obviously information that they can't get to, and I don't know, you know, a lot of these people are totally anonymous and they're just regular working people. And then, like I was saying, you know, maybe at night, kind of like what I do, I guess. At night, I'm doing a radio show, and during the day, I'm, you know, working at a corporation. So I'm sure there's a lot of people that do the same thing, except they're doing more important things as hacktivists. And that probably affects how much money they can put into something like that, you know. But ultimately, I would like to see a lot of these different groups come together. Like, I would like to see hacktivists and, you know, people that do media, independent media, and people that are actually at some point, and only if it really has to come to this, well, at least non-compliance and self-defense. I was gonna go further, but I was gonna say only if it really has to come to that. But I think that's something that's needed now as far as non-compliance. I think things are too out of hand at this point for all these ridiculous laws to keep being passed. And I think non-compliance is really needed. But I think at the same time, the problem is obviously you can't do it on your own. But I think there's different areas that can help to fight against the things that the government is doing. And I think hacktivists definitely have a huge role in what they can do, or can have a huge role with, you know, not that they don't now, but I mean, if they got together with others as well and getting everybody that truly believes in true freedom and liberty together and organized, and, you know, sort of like a resistance or rebels, or not to take over the government or anything like that, but I'm talking about to try to save some amount of freedom. I mean, it's whatever's left, if there's really anything left anyway. I guess I can't say that there's no freedom left, because there's still certain things that you can do. But if the government doesn't, here's the whole thing though, if the government doesn't want you to do them anymore, they will just stop you. Like, if they didn't want me to do the show anymore, and, you know, again, I'm not reaching enough people or anything like that, but if I was, and they said, we don't want this out there anymore, it won't be out there anymore. Whether it's, you know, getting the applications I broadcast on, getting me off of those, or whether they just make me disappear. And I'm just using myself as an example to talk about what they're capable of doing, not that, you know, I'm anywhere near important enough for them to even worry about me, because they're like, whatever, who the fuck's, you know, gonna listen to him anyway. And I don't mean like people that actually listen, but I mean like what's going to come out of me being on the radio. You know what I mean? Like, what's going to come out of it? There's not going to be no revolution just because I'm on the fucking, you know, on the internet. But I think that the importance of hacktivists, I mean, it can't be, I can't stress how important I think that is to getting, or, well, I would say getting freedoms back, or trying to have some type of freedom, and not just now, but the future. So what are your thoughts on that?
You know, I just keep going back to, in my mind, I just keep going back to how dangerous it is to stay anonymous. You know, and I know we can kind of play it down like, oh, what's it going to matter if they disappear one person? Like, it's,
well, because I think you're looking at it from the standpoint of, if they stay anonymous, like they can just totally disappear and nobody will know.
Yeah.
But it's still a person that has, you know, even though they're anonymous on the computer, they're not anonymous in life, and people will know that they fucking disappeared. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But a lot of these people, kind of like shut-ins, not too sociable, and that's why they're hackers. Like that kind of plays into it.
Yeah, true.
The whole stereotype. And I think that hackers can get, pretty easily blamed for just like incompetence with people building websites and doing stuff like that. You could probably pin a lot on a hacker just out of nowhere. Like there's this article I found. This was in the Washington Times, and the headline is Flint Hospital. So Flint, that's the place where there's all the dirty water.
Yeah,
because of
Flint, Michigan.
Government. Yeah. Because the government screwed it up. It's Flint Hospital targeted by Anonymous, hit by hackers amid water crisis fallout. And this was just posted just this week or last week. And I read through the article, and so there's supposed to be in the first paragraph, it's Flint, Michigan Hospital was the victim of an unspecified cyber attack on Tuesday. And that sounds terrible. It's like, why would hackers attack a hospital? This is terrible. But you keep reading the article, and that's all they say about it. They don't say what the attack was for. They're just like, yes, the hospital confirmed there was an attack. They don't say why there was an attack. They don't say anything about what happened or what was screwed up. It's just they were attacked, and like it's not news if nothing happened, right? It's just like that's just like somebody walked in the open door. Somebody walked in the house, looked around, and then left.
Right.
But they're making it out to be these hackers are so bad. It's just a really interesting article. It's just it's just totally loaded. And it really plays into this, what I've been talking about lately with some friends, is that article titles are so incredibly misleading but a lot of people only read the titles. Just on Facebook. And then they're just like, oh, yeah, that happened. And they just confirm their bias and move on, keep scrolling.
But even with something like that, how do they know? Did Anonymous say that they even did it? Or are they just blaming them?
Well, Anonymous did say, somebody saying they were Anonymous said that they were going to hold city officials in Flint accountable for the water. Now, I don't know. I haven't seen anything in the news about them actually doing that, but I think this article is just like everyone in Flint, Michigan is on edge over cyber attacks, and somebody at the hospital saw some weird blip on the computer and was like, "This is it. Anonymous is attacking," and it's just, and it's nothing. Like, it's not news. There's nothing that's happened to them. No big data leaked thing has come out or anything. It's a non-article, and it was just a really weird read,
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. It's not giving enough information about what they supposedly did anyway, and it's kind of like, and anybody can say, that's the other thing too, is anybody can say we're part of Anonymous. And, we're Anonymous and we did this. I mean, you don't even know, like, those videos. Anybody can do them.
Sure.
That's the, downside to being anonymous is, I mean, you have to, I think, do it to a certain extent, depending on what you're doing. I mean, if you're hacking into CIA and FBI databases, you don't want people to know who the fuck you are. So you have to be anonymous, but at the same time, it could be somebody who's not part of Anonymous. It could be somebody who, you don't know any of that. So that plays into it as well. But I'm going to take another quick break. If you'd like to call in, you can call in at 702-470-7664. That's 702-470-7664. If you'd like to expedite your call, just send a text with your name, where you're calling from, and what you want to talk about. You can also contact us via Skype, too. Just send a contact request to Nonpartisan Liberty for all one word, with the same information, your name, where you're calling from, and what you want to talk about. And I'd also like to again mention, I mentioned this yesterday, that we're trying to get sponsorship for a station in Phoenix, Arizona. It's actually a radio station on the radio, not on the internet, and probably do one night a week and really use it more to promote the internet than to promote getting on a whole bunch of stations, because that's not really my goal. I like being on the internet, being able to say whatever I want to say, and not having to really answer to anybody else, to be able to control everything. Now, the station in Arizona, it's basically like renting the time, and you can do whatever you want to do, and I could say whatever I want to say, except I guess for FCC violations. But besides that, it doesn't matter. But I'm not going to put up the money to do it, so I'm looking for sponsors. So if anybody knows anyone that would like to advertise and sponsor the show, because of course the whole point is you'd get advertisements on a 50,000 watt station in Phoenix, Arizona. It's a talk station, 1100 AM. I can send you the information. So I've been trying to solicit different people that are in marketing and casinos and things like that. So we'll see how that works out, and we could potentially be maybe one night a week on an actual station in Arizona, and maybe I'll even talk to them about simulcasting as well, where I'll still, do the exact same thing over the internet, because obviously people that are not in Phoenix won't be able to hear the show. So that will be that would be an issue, but I don't think they have any issue with that. They're basically like, we just want our money and we don't give a fuck. So, I mean, they didn't come out and say that, but that's pretty much what I got from them. So anyway, if anybody knows anyone that is in charge of advertising and would want to advertise in the Phoenix market, please give me a call. You can use the same line, the 702-470-7664, or nonpartisanlibertyforall@gmail.com. And also, you can like us on Facebook at Nonpartisan Liberty for All, and the Government Police, NPLFA Media and Radio Network. And I think I have one more that I can't remember the name right now. So we have a lot of Facebook pages too. And you can like us on Twitter and YouTube, and you can find us all over the place. And we're pretty easy to find, just Nonpartisan Liberty for All, and put in the application and you can probably find us. So we'll be right back after this, and check us out. Well, actually, if you just go to nonpartisanlibertyforall.com, it has all that information there. So if you haven't, go check us out at nonpartisanlibertyforall.com, and we will be back with Shire Dude to talk more about Hacktavist and hacktivism. I guess that would be the whatever term that would, not term, part of speech that would be. Wait, what would hacktivism be? Would that be a verb? You're a hacktivist?
I think it would just be the noun, like the job description, like a noun.
So, but we'll be right back after this. NonpartisanLibertyForAll.com.
Top 5 most notorious hackers. Number 5. Adrian Lamo. Lamo was arrested in 2003 after he managed to hack into the servers of the New York Times, Yahoo, and Microsoft. Lamo had become quite popular in the tech world for helping set up security systems for web servers. However, after the New York Times filed a complaint against him, a warrant was issued for his arrest. He also discovered and reported to U.S. authorities that Bradley Manning was leaking classified information on WikiLeaks. Number 4. Jonathan James. At 16 years old, James became the first juvenile to go to jail for hacking. He first hacked into the Bell South server, but his real trouble started when he broke into the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, an agency in the federal government. He stole usernames and passwords from several military personnel. He even stole important software from NASA. After a 6-month sentence, he committed suicide in 2008. Number 3. Gary McKinnon. In 2002, Mr. McKinnon was accused of perpetrating the biggest military computer hack of all time. McKinnon was accused by the United States of posting a notice on the military's website, "Your security is crap." After the September 11th attacks in 2001, he deleted weapons logs at the Earl Naval Weapons Station, paralyzing munitions supply deliveries for the U.S. Naval's Atlantic Fleet. He was never tried. Number 2. Kevin Mitnick. At the time of his arrest, Kevin Mitnick was the most wanted computer criminal in the U.S. He began his career in hacking at 15 when he hacked into the LA bus system to obtain free bus tickets. Later, he broke into Pacific Bell server and obtained hundreds of cell phone users' data to mask his location from the law. He was arrested and convicted in 1999 to 6 years in prison for 14 counts of wire fraud, among other charges. Number 1. Anonymous. In recent years, the internet group known only as Anonymous has been a thorn in the side of many. These hacktivists consist of many users who often hack into government, religious, or private sector servers as a form of retribution. Many people have been arrested and connect to Anonymous, and government officials have stepped up their counter-cybercrime operations due to the efforts of Anonymous.
25 members of Anonymous have been arrested across Europe. Interpol arrested them. Apparently they have an insider that was with Anonymous but is a turncoat. He's known as the Real Sabu on Twitter, apparently. And he helped these international organizations catch anonymous hackers, not only in Europe but also in the United States as well. Now, you can have a debate as to, what criminal laws that they broke and whether they should be arrested, and what should happen to them once they are arrested. I think that is a legitimate debate, okay? Now, as to what the FBI is saying about them, that part I don't find legitimate, and I'll tell you why. I'll give you the exact quotes. Robert Mueller is the director of the FBI, and he says, first, quote, "In the not-too-distant future, we anticipate that the cyber threat will pose the #1 threat to our country." Now, he's just warming up there, and it's over-the-top rhetoric because I thought the terrorists were the #1 threat because they kill people like on 9/11, all those people dead. But no, they say cybersecurity. Now, if they just left it at that, look, cybersecurity is a real threat. If people break in, whether it's to steal identities or they get into government, accounts, it's a real issue, right? The government has to deal with, all right? They left it there, it's fine, but they don't. Of course, it's a prelude to Robert Mueller saying next, we need to take lessons learned from terrorism and apply them to cybercrime. There we go. Now, what do we tell you? We told you the minute that they passed these laws saying, we got to get the terrorists and their associated forces, all of a sudden they would start expanding the definition of terrorists. And we showed you in one case, they were like, well, the drug gangs, they really terrorize people. They're pretty close to terrorists. And now apparently cybercrime, virtual crime, not to say that it's not a real crime, but it's online, is apparently the equivalent of terrorism. But he continues. Once isolated hackers have joined forces to form criminal syndicates. They were used to be isolated, but now they're criminal syndicates, they're mobs, they're mafias, they're terrorists. You see how dangerous these people are. Whatever we do to them is obviously justified. One more. And this is, I think, particularly troubling, because now he's addressing this to private corporations, and he says, remember when they broke into Stratfor, Anonymous did, and found out all the things we were doing in cahoots, private corporations with the U.S. government, and they found your intelligence there too. And he tells them, quote, "We must work together to safeguard our property, to safeguard our ideas, and safeguard our innovation. We must use our connectivity to stop those who seek to do us harm." If Anonymous is seeking to do private corporations any harm to their property, well, they're terrorists, aren't they? And here's our FBI director telling private corporations, why don't we get even more connected? Anybody know what it's called when business and state merges? Anybody know what that political term is? I don't know. I'll let you look it up. And he says, let's get even more connected. And if these hackers, what they call hacktivists, now get into your private corporations and find out any of your information at all, and we think any of your property is damaged, don't worry, we'll call them terrorists and lock them up forever. Fantastic. Anonymous, through their Twitter account, Your Anon News, said, quote, "So according to FBI's new logic, hacking a company is worse than an event like 9/11, which resulted in thousands of deaths. Hashtag fear-mongering." That is exactly right, but it's not enough. It's not just fear-mongering for the sake of fear-mongering. It's also done to make sure that they could apply maximum penalty to the people who they find the most guilty. Not the most guilty of committing violent crimes, the most guilty of violating the core part of our government, which is the top secret information that they have and how they work with private business interests to further private business interests. That's the information they desperately don't want you to know. And if you go to that, forget people being killed, forget Al-Qaeda, forget real terrorists. If you go to that core and show people how your government sells you out day in and day out for an extra buck for their friends in those private corporations, well, then you're the terrorist and you got to go away for a long, long time. What's happened to our government is a travesty. I don't know how we're going to get it back. I do know that the one thing we absolutely have to do is separate business and state and separate our government from the influence of money that has so thoroughly corrupted it that our FBI director is talking about how we need to have more connectivity between business and government and make sure that none of the citizens actually find out our secrets.
Promoting the ideas of true freedom and liberty, Nonpartisan Liberty for All Radio with Dave Bourne.
And we are back. Speaking of a story that we had talked about earlier, before we get back to Hacktavist, and you pretty much had this right, Shire dude. So Donald Trump went on the Fox News channel with Bill O'Reilly, and he had said that instead of doing the debate, that he is going to hold his own event in Iowa.
Oh, wow. Called it.
Because he didn't want to give them the ratings that they would get from him being on.
Yeah.
So,
man, yeah. See, so he's trying to pull a Rand Paul. You know, pretty soon, maybe in elections to come, people will start doing this, skipping the debate and doing their own thing.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to. I think he's better off doing the debate, to be honest, than having some rally. I mean, I watched all his town halls when I was preparing. I think for the show that we did when we did a show on him and Bernie Sanders, and every single one was almost exactly the same. It's like he had the same speech and he just did it over and over again.
Yeah.
But he made another remark about Megyn Kelly. I mean, this is a guy, though, that he's kind of pretty fucked up if you think about it, because he's somebody that if you piss him off at all, if you do something even if it's something little, if you do something that pisses him off that he thinks is wrong, like he's going to want to come after you, or he doesn't want anything to do with you. So even if it hurts him personally, which I think that's what this is doing. I mean, what would he do if a country did that? He bombed them or something, like, you know, oh, the leader of this country pissed me off, I'm just going to bomb him. You're fired. I mean, what the fuck? So
yeah, he's really petty.
Definitely. And it's like, you know, I'm Donald Trump. You can't do that to me. You can't treat me like that. I don't even know what Fox did. I'm still not clear on what happened, or if it was if it's still an issue with Megyn Kelly, because I guess Megyn Kelly's going to not monitor. What do they call them? The moderator. Yeah, that she's going to moderate the debate. So maybe that's why. I mean, it's so fucking stupid. And he got mad at her because of a question that she asked.
I think what's going to happen is they're still going to attack Trump as being the front runner. So they're still going to attack him whether he's there or not. Like, I don't think it's really going to change the anti-Trump sentiment in the room that he's not there.
But that's the whole thing that is not going to be good for him, is that he's going to have people attacking him, and he's not going to be able to defend himself unless, like, he puts like a big screen up and responds to what people say. But I think he's just going to have like another town hall, say the same bullshit that he said at every other town hall, and it's not going to help him any. I think it's going to show how stupid he is. But who knows? I mean, I don't understand why people like him in the first place. So it's hard to predict how people will react to it. Maybe they'll think it's a positive thing, and they'll celebrate it. Like, look at Donald Trump. He has the balls just not to go. You know, I look at it as he's a little baby, and, you know, if he can't have things exactly his way or whatnot, he's just gonna be like, well, I'm not going. You know, like a kid that can't have it their way. Like, well, fuck it, I'm not going then. You know, so that's how I see it. But anyway, I had just read that, so I wanted to bring that up.
That's great.
But
wow.
Oh, sorry. Were you gonna?
Oh, and I was just going to say that's going to be a really interesting event. Like, whatever Trump does, I actually might end up watching.
Yeah.
Just because I want to see what he tries to pull off, you know?
I'll listen to it the next day because I'll be doing a show. But what they usually do is on YouTube, they'll take out all the commercials. So it's pretty cool. I can just listen to it at work with no commercials. So that makes it goes by a lot faster, too. But I wanted to, one of the things that I didn't get to, we started to talk about some of them, but was the number of arrests. And I'm sure there's been more, but Aaron Schwartz, who ended up killing himself before he got to go to court, which I think was a government murder. I really do. I think they killed him. He was found hanged. Everybody had said at the time that he wasn't scared, that he thought he was going to beat it. And I don't believe it was like the day before he was supposed to go to trial or anything like that neither, because you would think, I'm not sure that it wasn't, but you would think that if you're going to kill yourself before you go to trial, like, wait till the last possible, you know.
Sure.
Wait till the last possible time to do that. But, and of course there's appeals and all that shit too. So I don't know. But with the way that the injustice system is what I call it is now, it doesn't matter whether you did something or not. There is no justice. The juries are instructed a certain way, and they listen to the judges. And I think they may even use some of the spy technology to pick the jury or to get more information about juries. And if they're not using it now, they will be in the future. So don't think that a jury is going to help you. Basically, if you're accused of a crime, unless they're going to drop it, you're fucked. 99% of the time, maybe a little less, or you're like a celebrity or something like that, then maybe you might have a chance there, or a billionaire, or one of the elite. Weave, as we talked about, served 1.5 years in jail, or he was. I don't know that he served the whole time. I know he was sentenced to 1.5 years. He might have got out early, so he hasn't really changed. They had an interview with him after. I think he was just more had the more of the mind state that I'm just gonna go after them. I don't give a fuck anymore. Then there was Jeremy Hammond, and that was the one that I had mentioned went to jail from the snitch guy, Sabu, that went by the name Sabu. I think he was the only one. He got sentenced to 10 years supposedly for hacking into the private U.S. intelligence firm, Stratford. I don't know if he took any information or what he did, but and I'm still, thinking about what we were talking about earlier, that if you can go to a computer and you can, from being on that computer, go access something else. I don't know how I feel about that. Now, obviously, if somebody went and accessed my computer, like the government probably does with mine and everybody else's, and just, puts all our information and stores it somewhere, obviously that's not okay. But fuck it, if they can do it, why can't you do it? And really, what are you doing if you're not, fucking with anything? If you're just viewing, is it really a crime to log into something and just view?
Yeah, and then the extension of that is sharing it with other people. It's like, if one person views it, then what's the difference between one person and then another person peering over their shoulder, or a billion persons peering over their shoulder?
Yeah.
What's the difference in the number of people being able to view this information?
So I don't.
It's
know.
interesting.
Ahead.
Besides Anonymous, just real fast, how many hacktivist groups do you even know of? Because I feel like they don't get any press, and I guess I'm just not in that
I don't think they want it, because even the guy who was the snitch said, when they asked him, would you have done anything differently? And he said, well, one of the things I would have done differently is not been involved with Anonymous, because they just get too much attention.
Yeah, it's been a buzzword for years now. Anytime anyone says they're anonymous, it's like a big deal. It's like, oh, Anonymous is doing this, because it's like that recognizable Guy Fawkes mask.
Yeah, all you gotta do is go get a Guy Fawkes mask, and there you go. But
it's free, tons of free press. Yeah,
but I think that maybe a lot of, if there are other groups, which I'm sure there are, and they mentioned another one, I can't remember the name of it, that that guy was a part of. But you would think that if you were doing this stuff, because you could be totally anonymous, what you could do, and I know you have some issues with that, with being totally anonymous, because you could just disappear. But if you have a life outside of that, then obviously people are going to notice if you just disappear. But yeah. I mean, I would rather be totally anonymous and feed the information to like WikiLeaks or something like that, and no one ever know who I am.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's really only a problem if you get caught, you know?
Right. And not be part of any group or anything like that, because the more people that know, the worse it is, because, you know, people could snitch on you, or, you know, if you just do it totally on your own and get that information out there, because there are ways, obviously, to, you know, like I said, get it to somebody like WikiLeaks, to Julian Assange, and get it out there that way. So if you just did it on your own, got the information to him, there you go, and not tell anybody that you're doing, you know, you don't want anybody else to know even that you're a hacker. Why? You know, you do have people that have egos, and that can get them into trouble, that they want people to know, hey, I did this or I did that, but you really don't. You know, and if you do that badly, wait, you know, write a book, have it hidden somewhere, and have somebody release it before you die, or I mean after you die. So, or write it on your deathbed, you know, if you really want some credit there. But it's not about the credit. It's about trying to, again, preserve some freedom, or not only preserve freedom, but obtain some freedom, to actually have true freedom and liberty. And I don't see us having much of that. I really don't. And the point is not that you can't, you know, we're just in a bigger cage. It's not that you can't do these things and people are going to bother you. Like, yeah, you can go out and you can go to the store and you can go to the bar and whatever. And the majority of the time, probably no one's going to bother you, meaning law enforcement. But that's only because they don't want to. But the point is they can if they want to. And at the same time, they're collecting all this information. They're militarizing the police. They're putting in all this infrastructure for whatever reason. And I think they're really preparing for, you know, something. At the same time, they're telling everybody, hey, if you see somebody in your neighborhood that you don't know, call the police. It's crazy. And you see those commercials at the movies now.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's nuts. But you also have this other guy who wasn't a hacktivist, but he was a whistleblower. He was like the original whistleblower. Like, you have Snowden, but this guy's like the OG whistleblower or whatever. Thomas Drake. And he was facing 35 years in jail. And he actually went through the proper channels, from what I understand. And he was still facing, I think they were charging him with the Espionage Act or something like that, like violating the Espionage Act. And this is somebody who was just trying to report what they were doing. And he doesn't get the credit or the publicity that Edward Snowden gets, but I think he did it. I'm thinking it's already 10 years or something like that he did it, maybe 2005 or 2006, maybe even a little earlier. So these things have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
To say that they, you know, haven't, like some people just think, oh, well, Edward Snowden told us, you know, a couple years ago, so it's only been around for a couple years. Like, no.
Well, Edward Snowden, I think, is just so notable because he got away with it, like, and like in such an in-your-face manner that he's still doing interviews over Skype, you know, that. Like there's like you know, people who really revere him for that, for the fact that he kind of got away with it and was kind of like neener nonner about it, You know, like that picture of him on Halloween when he was dressed up as Waldo.
Oh, I didn't see that. But
he was dressed up as Waldo. Like, where's Waldo? And his girlfriend was dressed up as Carmen Sandiego.
From that Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?
Yeah, and they tweeted that. Like, it's so bold and it's great. But yeah, you know, like Julian Assange, he did a whole bunch with WikiLeaks, and he got freaking smeared by media. There was like a whole movie made to smear him
for rape or whatever as well. Is he? The last I had heard, and he's done interviews from there. Is he was in the embassy, the Ecuador's embassy in England or something, that he's been living there for I don't know how long. I don't know if, because I thought I heard that the woman who had initially brought the charges had changed her story. So I don't know if he's still in there, but yeah, I mean, they pretty much set him up and he's sitting there, you know, stuck in an embassy.
And he had a hacktivist at his back too, back in like 2010, where there were a bunch of like banks and financial institutions trying to cut off funding to WikiLeaks. So like they had like this
they weren't
Swiss
trying.
bank.
They did. I thought.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, obviously, because like MasterCard, like they own, you know, the account, so they can just freeze your account immediately. And so they were cutting off the funding by freezing accounts. And Anonymous went and they shut down the MasterCard website. Like that's amazing. Like that's a big old Goliath that you're going after at that point.
Yeah,
you know, freaking MasterCard.
Well, I thought the way that he ended up getting money was from Bitcoin. That
that
they ended up sending him Bitcoin,
Yeah.
and that's how he ended up getting money. And I had actually just watched recently a documentary about Bitcoin too, and I did go to a Bitcoin conference, but I'm still not a expert, or far from an expert in Bitcoin, where at some point I want to do a show on it. And I had Stephanie Murphy on before, like when she was in Las Vegas, that her and Brian were actually in the studio and we got into it a little, but I don't know enough about it to, you know, probably do a whole show at this point. I still need to understand some more things.
Yeah, no, that'll be fun. I'll do that with you because I've been in Bitcoin since 2011. I bought Bitcoins when they were $16 a Bitcoin.
Oh, so you must have made a lot of money off that.
Kind of. I ended up buying buying things with the Bitcoins when they got to around like 260. Like there was the spike at like $260 a Bitcoin.
Because at one point they went to like 1,000, didn't they?
Yeah, I missed that one, man. I was so bummed because, you know, of course, I'm spending my Bitcoins when they're 260, like, oh, yeah, I'm doing great. And then they went to 1,000 shortly after, and I was kicking myself. But no, I did some profit taking. I bought some cool computer stuff and bought some drugs on the Silk Road. That was cool.
Yeah, I went to Silk Road because I was looking at some stuff on there, and then Brian Sovereign was gonna show me how to do anonymous transactions. Of course, not on Silk Road. I wasn't gonna buy anything illegal, of course. But he was going to show me how to do anonymous transactions, and then I guess he was just busy and never got a chance to show me because I was going to get some Bitcoin and
see, with Bitcoins, obviously, if you put out your public key, so the thing that people need to pay you, then it's out there and it's got your name on it forever. Like if the internet knows that that's you at one point, that's pretty much listed as you forever. So your Bitcoins aren't anonymous at that point. But then they have these things called coin mixers. I don't know if you've heard of those, where it's a service where you send them your Bitcoins and they send you a bunch of other people's Bitcoins, and then the Bitcoins are all mixed together, you know. And so it's laundered because it's all mixed up, it's all jumbled up.
Yeah, I heard there was a way to where it wouldn't have that, identifying thing that it would always be, that they could trace it back to you somehow. But I didn't know how to do any of that. So,
yeah. Or if you're communicating online with like PGP, it's the encryption where you have like a key, like a private key. So like PGP is really interesting. It stands for pretty good privacy, it's people messaging each other. And so like if I message you, you have my private key, or not my private key, but you have the key to unencrypt the message that I sent you. And so that's how I know that it got to you, because only you have that key. And then, I would have your key to get your messages.
Right.
And there's apps for that now, man. Like there's an app called Glyph that they do essentially like an encrypted messaging thing back and forth, where like I have your secret code so I know it's you, and you could even set it to where like the message that I send you erases itself after a certain period of time. Like I can set that up so our conversations disappear. So if it doesn't really take too much effort, with getting into Bitcoins and PGP and using apps like Glyph, you really can make yourself a lot more anonymous than most of us do. And I think it's just putting in that little effort that most people just aren't willing to do.
See, and that's where I think, and this goes along with Hacktavists, where I think everything lies is in the anti-technology, because the government is going to do what they're going to do, and technology is going to continue to advance, and there's nothing you can do about that. And I don't know why in general people would want to stop technology anyway. It's going to happen. It's just like, the government trying to stop all of these countries from getting certain weapons. You're not going to be able to do it forever. Technology is going to advance, and eventually everybody's going to have everything. So you're better off looking for anti-technology than, going after these countries and trying to stop them from getting the technology in the first place. And it's the same thing. It's like with government's technology, as more and more anti-technology comes out, it's going to make it easier to combat what they're doing. Now, of course, they have unlimited funds and they can do whatever they want. But hopefully, I hope another thing that happens is, along with people learning more about what the government's doing, that there is a backlash of working for the government, and all of these people that are, geniuses, less and less of them work for the government, or want to work for the government. Now, I think we're going to get to a point where the majority of jobs are going to be government jobs. I think there's going to be more jobs like you're going to have a big percentage of people, and I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but you're going to have a big percentage of people that are just, you think they're just normal people, but they're fucking spies for the government.
Yeah, I mean, I see the trend when you think about what government does to private industry. It usually tries to take over that industry. And if government has a hand in private industry, their motive then becomes crush the competitors,
right,
in order to profit. So like with healthcare, I think the government can just take over little by little, from the top to the bottom. Pretty soon you have government doctors and government healthcare providers, or health insurance providers.
We need the single payer.
Yeah,
it's almost like a Mike Tyson. I was trying to burn it. We need single payer, just to have everybody get everybody have Medicare. You know what I'm saying? Everybody should have Medicare. You know what I'm saying? Because it's ludicrous, man. No, but
it was almost like Sinbad talking about single payer.
But what was I saying? No, but I was also talking about just, how, say, East Germany had just spies. Just you'd go to the local bar or something, and you'd have to watch whatever you say because there's people around, and you don't know. Maybe they work for the government, maybe they don't. And when you get to a point where you have all these laws where saying anything against the government is illegal, and somebody made some asinine statement about guns and going after people's guns, which they did in California, in New York, gun confiscation, and said, how would they do it? There's so many guns. And I think that's a fucking dumbass statement because look at it now. How do they arrest people and how do they get all the people that have warrants out for their arrest? And of course, they don't get every single one of them, but how do they get the majority of them? Well, you set it up where each area has a fucking police station and it's monitored by each area. Duh. I mean, what's the difference? To make a statement like that, how would they find, all the people, or how would they be able to do that on a scale of the whole United States? Well, the same way they're able to police and the same way they're able to do all these other things.
Yeah, and also,
register cars. I mean,
when you talk about like the scalability of like the federal government, they don't have that market mechanism of like overexpansion since their money is stolen, and since it's not like voluntary contributions to this business, it's mandatory contributions to this behemoth that just keeps growing and growing. It doesn't have any real market signal when to stop growing. So it just becomes like a virus. Like for instance, the FBI or the CIA or any of these like intelligence agencies, they don't know when to stop growing, because it's not a real like market based thing, based hierarchy. So they could just keep growing and growing. And I definitely,
Well, that's their goal. I mean, I think that's not only the main goal of government, but that's the main goal of every single department within government is they want to grow. And they want to be involved in more and more. So how do you grow government? Well, you get involved in more shit. And the same where the CIA or the FBI, they could take on more responsibility, or you just create more agencies. But the goal of government, to me, and I look at this a little differently because I look at this from the beginning that the goal of government is always to take as much control as possible. And I've brought this up a bunch of times. If you look at the definition of government in the dictionary, there's not a one definition that doesn't have the word control in it. And that's, to me, the goal of government has nothing to do with helping people or anything like that. It's about control and expansion and getting to a point where they're able to control every aspect of your life. And if you have the government control every aspect of your life, you're going to need more and more government. You're going to need more government jobs. So you're going to have, I think, a period where it's going to get to, I don't know what it is now, what percentage of people have government jobs, but you're going to get to a point where 50%, maybe more, people have government jobs, because you're going to have, like I said, you're probably going to have in each neighborhood, you're going to have people that may even work another job, because they're spying. So they're working at, just a regular place as well. Or maybe they're working for the government at like the post office, but they're like a spy as well or something like that, and they're living in your neighborhood, watching the neighborhood in general. and reporting back, if they see anything. Just like the fucking stupid HOA, gets back to the HOA board and for something really stupid. What did I do? Oh, I put a baby gate on my little gate so the smallest dog couldn't fit out, and somebody noticed that, and it's like way back because it's in the back. So point being that I think things are going to go that far. I still have a couple things to talk about regarding Hacktavist, and we got about 10 minutes. But what is, before we get to that, what is your opinion on that? I mean, how far do you think things are going to go, and do you think things are going in a positive direction? And I realize you're in New Hampshire, where I think it's even hard if the reality in New Hampshire is that things aren't going in a positive direction to even realize it, because you have so many people that are saying how positive it is and how we're going in this positive direction. And I just, from what I hear, I don't see it, but I'm not there. I don't think New Hampshire's going in a negative direction, but I'm just saying, like, I hear about all these things.
Yeah, it's a constant tug of war between the positive and the negative direction, And when you're talking about, the Free State Project specifically, we're at 98% now. If you look at freestateproject.org, 98% of signers.
But that's right. But that's signers. And how many people are going to actually move? That's something if
that translates to movers, yes. Even if you can picture, so there are 2,000 Free Staters who moved early, who said, forget the 20,000 limit. Right. I'm just going to sign
like
and
you.
Move. Yeah, like me, the badasses. And
well, no, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant like you moved early.
Yeah, man. So there's
there's a bunch of people that I know, that Ellen, who's been on the show, and
those 2,000 are only 10% of all the movers. Even if we only got 5,000 movers, so like 25% of anyone who signed, and that's drastically low.
It should keep going on, is what
it will. It will. It just won't be formal like signers and stuff. It'll just be people saying, "Oh, New Hampshire's looking pretty good right now. I think I'm going to end up moving there and being a late mover or whatever you want to call them." But if you look at early movers, so those original 2,000 who are already here, and you look at them as a percentage of the state population, there, I think it's like 0.15% or something really small, really minuscule. But then if you look at the proportion of Free Staters in the State House, of those 400 state representatives, it's 5% of the State House are Free Staters, are known Free Staters. So already, we're way more. What's the word? We're way more represented in the State House, even with the project not even really being started. So I do think at least in New Hampshire's scope, I do think there's a positive overall. I think we're gonna gain.
Also, and again, I'm not saying that trying to be negative, but
sure,
out of all the people, and then I want to get to the other thing that I asked you in general about where you think things are going on a federal level, more on that than just the state of New Hampshire, but yeah, out of all these people, they're at different levels, I guess, of freedom. Like, I had Dave Ridley on the show before. I still can't tell you really what he stands for, and I don't.
He's
think,
a weird guy. Yeah,
I don't think he liked me very much after I had him on, and I was a fan of his show. I would watch his show, and I asked him to come on, and I don't know if it was because he didn't agree with me or because he would say that. I forget exactly what he said. He'd say some things that made him sound like, okay, I don't want a government to exist, but he'd still say that he wants government. So he wants there to be a government, But
like his activism is like state house activism, and so he's used to talking to people in terms of, well, there's a government right now, what should we do about it?
But he even was saying it from the standpoint, now he's could have changed since then, but this wasn't that long ago. But maybe it was like maybe it was like a year now. Damn, time's going pretty fast. He would say, and I'm not trying to put Dave down. I think, what he does is great and everything, but he would say that he still wants government, but then some of the things he would say would contradict it. You know what I mean?
It could be a contradiction in terms like maybe his definition of government is different. My definition of government would be, anything that's funded via non-voluntary basis. There we go. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe he had some sort of different definition.
I don't know. I'm still not.
Yeah, we'd have to check with him.
Clear, but just my point being is that out of all these people, everybody's on. Not everybody's like you, or to the extent that you are, or that Ellen is, or some of the people that I know that whose views are closer to mine. There's a lot of people that are more minarchist, or they're for freedom, but not to the same extent that they still want some government. But getting back to what I was just talking about regarding on a federal level and the country as a whole, where do you see things? I mean, do you see things getting worse and worse? Or what's your opinion on the country as a whole? Because what I see is really just them preparing for, I don't know exactly. I'm not going to say, from a conspiracy theory perspective that, they're preparing for martial law and all of that. I mean, to me, it's just a fact that if people have power over you, if you put them in positions of power, and they've been doing this since the Constitution was implemented, that they've been taking more and more power, and they're more and more involved in your life. And how far, I don't see them stopping anytime soon. All I see them doing is moving further and further ahead. And as somebody who thinks that it doesn't matter who the president is because you have other people essentially running the government, that's just going to continue. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you agree with that, or do you?
I think we're a stone's throw away from a police state federally. And there are these pockets of liberty that seem to be growing and thriving. Whether or not they're any more growing and thriving than they were 10 years ago or 50 years ago, I don't know. I don't really have that perspective. But on the large scale, on the macro, things are getting worse, a lot worse. And unfortunately, the majority of Americans don't care yet. They don't care enough yet. And so things will have to continue. They'll have to continue to get worse.
Well, I think what you have is, I think you have more and more people on one side that are realizing what's going on. So I think you have an increase in that. But on the other side, you have more and more people that are getting more and more ignorant and don't care. So it's like you have a positive on one side that I think there's more people that are realizing what's going on, but on the other side you have more people that don't. So
almost like a polarizing effect, like people are coming out from the middle.
So it's I don't know how to look at that, because really for them to accomplish what they want to accomplish, them meaning the federal government, they only need those, that other side. They only need a certain amount of people to really accomplish what they want to accomplish. And
it's
I
really
think
weak. It's weakness in numbers. It's the more people there are overall in the United States, the worse off liberty people are going to be.
Yeah, and oh, go ahead.
Well, sorry, just to put that in perspective, it's like, the rare occurrence that a young man picks up a book about Rothbard and reads through it and actually absorbs the information and retains it, and then goes on to read more, Bastiat and Friedman and all those other stuff. How many statist future babies have been born in the time that took,
Right. Yeah. And that's the whole thing, that I think even now they have enough people to be able to, like I said, rig elections and get what they want done. So when it comes to the laws, they have that covered. They know that in the media, if they just show this and present things in a certain way, that they know how to get a certain percentage of those people, and they can rig all the elections they want. So we only have a couple minutes left, but I just wanted to go through these real quick. So the negative aspects that I saw about the hacktivists, and I mentioned it, were, a lot of it was, there were a lot of pranking going on and trolling and stuff like that, and trolling to people that didn't seem to be doing anything wrong. So that I saw. I mean, I know they're having fun and whatever. So, and of course the bad outweighs the good, but I thought that was kind of,
there's a level of immaturity in that kind of culture.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And then, well, this is basically what we've been talking about, but kind of to summarize it, the government is definitely targeting them as much as possible. So the government realizes how dangerous they are. And when I say dangerous, they're not dangerous to us or to average people. They're dangerous to the government from the standpoint of they can get that information out there. And the government is definitely scared of them, and that's why they're giving these ridiculous sentences and stacking charges and going after them the way they are, because they want to try to make examples. And not only make examples, but then get rid of the ones, as many as they can, that are doing it. So you have that as well, and they definitely realize that. I think that what it looked like to me, and based off of everything else I see, I think the government sees hacktivists as the biggest threat, maybe besides people that are actually, committing acts of violence. Besides that, I think they look at them as the biggest threat, because they're able to obtain this information that they don't want out there.
Yeah, right. It's really, I hate to get into this because I have to go, but the secrecy of the government is really, like it's Achilles' heel, like their communications with each other and how much they can keep under wraps. At the same time, I gotta bring up, I think the government can get away with doing a lot just right out in the open without really trying to hide it.
Yeah, they can. They do a lot of stuff. Like, there's so many government documents out there that you can read, and they're crazy. I mean, the stuff that they're doing, it's not hard to find. It's not a conspiracy. They're doing all this shit, and you can find it easily, but nobody seems to care.
It's just like Donald Trump recently mentioned that he can go out in the street and shoot somebody and still get voted for,
He's an idiot. I know. And probably that would probably be the case. Just, self-defense. And then just to close it out, as I had said earlier, I think that because as you were saying, they kind of have their own culture. And I think that hacktivists getting more involved with other freedom-oriented groups would be a positive thing.
If they want support, and if they want like real, like, you know, actual, like, tangible, like, effort to help them out or like to fund them, Liberty people are where to go, right? Like, these are people who are actually doing things, who are building businesses and, you know, doing agorism and actually like fundraising and especially here in New Hampshire, you know, building the infrastructure of freer community. These hacktivists really, I mean, they have a friend in the liberty movement, and it'd be really foolish to not see that or to not use that to their advantage.
Yeah, and they definitely are liberty people, the majority of them, because that's what they're doing. I mean, most of them are targeting government because of that lack of freedom, that the government's not transparent or not telling the people all the fucked up shit they're doing. And if you watch the anonymous videos, you know, I wouldn't agree with everything that they say, but, you know, there's a lot of stuff that I do agree with and I think is consistent with freedom. So, well, that's all we have for tonight. I, of course, would like to thank Shire Dude for joining us, and he'll be back, I don't know, whatever the date is, probably the 11th, right? 2 weeks, the 10th.
We will defend these police officers.
2 weeks from today. So, unless something else comes up, but
should be good. Yeah.
So, again, I'd like to thank him and thank you all for tuning in. And I'll be back tomorrow. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. NonpartisanLibertyForAll.com, ShireDude.com. And
You need to comply with the police officer.
Thanks again.
The way the system was meant to be. Comply with the orders of police officers. Resisting arrest is a real and dangerous crime. We will defend these police officers.
Listen to police officers' commands, listen to what we tell you, and just stop. The nation needs to realize that when we tell you to do something, do it. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, then the courts will figure it out.
We don't get to take the law, we enforce it. But at the end of the day, each and every member should go home safe. Sometimes the use of force is necessary. You need to comply with the police officer, the way the system was meant to be. Comply with the orders of police officers. Resisting arrest is a real and dangerous crime.
Nonpartisan Liberty for All. I'm your host, Dave Bourne, and it is January 27, 2016. And we are coming to you live from Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you for tuning in to Nonpartisan Liberty for All. We are on Tuesday through Thursday at 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern. And you can listen live on Spreaker.com and NonpartisanLibertyForAll.com, as well as to the archives on Spreaker, YouTube, Twitter, and SoundCloud, as well as Tumblr, but that's TUMLR. I don't know. If you're not on Tumblr already, don't even fuck with it. But if it's something that you're already on, then go look for us on Tumblr. We promote the ideas of true freedom and liberty, meaning being able to do what you want as long as you respect the freedom of others and don't directly interfere with their freedom, as well as exposing government for what it is, a mafia based on extortion that rules without consent by threat of force and violence. We have a few different things we're going to talk about today. Of course, our main topic being hacktivism, which for those who have never heard the term or aren't familiar with the word, it has to do with hacking, which would be hacking into other people's systems, computers, things like that, including government systems and computers. And the difference between, I guess, just a hacker and a hacktivist is actually an activist as well. So they're doing it for the common good or to fight for freedom or liberty, as opposed to just a hacker who might be doing it for the money. And I think what they try to do a lot is make hacktivists out to be like regular hackers, that they're in it for the money and they're trying to essentially do these things for reasons other than the altruistic reasons that they are really doing it for. And if you see these guys, if you've ever seen a documentary or videos, a lot of them are pretty young, and they're so smart that they have so many other ways of making money that they don't have to hack into systems to make money. They can make money through computer programs, through creating their own computer programs, through being a computer programmer. They don't have to be a hacktivist as well, but they're doing it because most of them, I mean, I can't speak for every single one of them. This is just in general, that they're doing it because they know that the government is fucking us over. They know the things that the government is doing, and they're not going to allow the government to get away with it. And they fortunately have a skill that I think is very important. And we'll get into how important it is later on in the show. Later on, we'll also be joined by Shire Dude live in New Hampshire. He'll be joining us by Spreaker. Speaking of Spreaker, if you'd like to call into the show, you could call in, send the contact request to Nonpartisan Liberty for All, and your name, where you're calling from, and what you want to talk about, and we'll bring you on. You can also call in at 702-470-7664. That's 702-470-7664. And to expedite the call, if you just texted in your name, where you're calling from, or what you want to talk about, that would probably get you on quicker. So before we get to our main topic, which I really do believe this is an important topic, there's a couple things that I believe are very important when it comes to freedom and liberty. And one of them being parenting. And that's more of something that could change the future. And the more people that take their kids out of government schools and follow peaceful parenting and not disciplining their kids and being able to bring their kids up to think freely and not just obey everything, I think that is very important. But that's more of something that you'd have to wait, 15 to 20 years to see the effects of that, because that would be the next generation. The other thing I talk about a lot is noncompliance and self-defense, and not being afraid to defend yourself against anybody just because they're a member of a entity that claims they rule where you live. Doesn't mean that you don't have the right to defend yourself against them. And the other thing I think that is very important, and I think it will get more important in the future, is hacktivists, because the one thing that they can do that is going to be very important is counter some of the technology that the government is going to come up with. And that is very important, because that's where I think there's the biggest difference. And I'm talking about if it comes down to the point where the government totally takes over and you have no rights or freedoms whatsoever. And I think that will happen at some point. But hacktivists will be able to hopefully help with combating some of that technology. And that is very important. So those are three of the things that I see as being the most important regarding freedom. And I may be missing a couple things, but just as far as what's in my mind right now, those are three very important things. But again, before we get to our main topic of hacktivists, I have a few stories that I wanted to talk about. So, I believe it was last night. No, it was Monday night because I got to watch it. I was like, I believe it was last night. And I'm like, I don't know what day it is. It's when, see, I think I said, did I say it was, I don't think I said the day. I think I just said January 27, 2016. I don't think I said Wednesday, because for a minute I thought it was Tuesday. But on Monday, there was, of course, another debate, a master debate. It wasn't really a debate, though. It was like a town hall type thing where they brought out each of the wannabe rulers. And let's get this straight. That's what they are. They are wannabe rulers. These are people that want to rule over you. Otherwise, what the fuck would they be running for? So let's get that straight. Why anybody would worship these people or celebrate them or root for them, or I understand if you feel like your only option is to vote for somebody, if that's how you feel, but don't worship. He may be the person that they are going to control, and pretty much I think he's going to go with whatever what he wants. His agenda is pretty much what the agenda is of the people that the powers that be anyway. If you look at what he wants to do, I don't think anybody's even actually looking at what his agenda is. They're just listening to his stupid one-liners and his fights he's starting with people and his arrogance. I personally want to punch the guy in the face. Now, I would not do that, but I've said before, I hated Trump years ago. I always couldn't stand Trump because he is so fucking arrogant. And I mentioned this. He used to call up Howard Stern and talk about his dumb show and how his ratings were great and everybody loves him and it's great. And he's just great all the time. The show's great. The people at NBC are great. They all love the show. They can't get enough of it. It's like, and Howard Stern, you know, for all the respect I used to have for him, and I had a lot of respect for him because he was somebody in radio that really stood up to the government. He really did. He said, fuck you. I'm going to say what I want to say. He did comply essentially with the FCC's 7 dirty words or whatever. But besides that, he said, no, I'm going to say what I'm going to say and fuck you. And people tried to put him down his whole career. He could have easily changed or gave up or whatever. And I think he finally has now that he's a multi-billionaire and he's friends with all the Hollywood people. And I finally stopped listening to him about, maybe it's been 2 years now, because I couldn't listen to that shit anymore. And then plus his opinion about the police and how great that they are, and his political opinions, I couldn't listen to them anymore. But he usually would say and stand up to whoever. It didn't matter. I mean, he talked shit about his boss, but he didn't say a word about Donald Trump. You know, the arrogance when he would talk to Donald Trump, he didn't get off the phone and talk about how arrogant he was, or even when he was on the phone. Now, I don't know what he's saying now. I wonder what he's saying now, actually, on the radio, but I don't have Sirius right now. I had gotten rid of it. I could easily just get it back, but I'm not going to get it back to see what Howard Stern's saying about him, but he would never stand up to Trump. But Trump is an arrogant, the company, I shouldn't say this, but I guess you won't know who they are, but all the rooms at Trump Las Vegas are owned by another company. They're not owned by Trump, by a timeshare company that I may or may not work for. So, and that's public information. It's not like a secret that they're selling, you know, timeshares at Trump, which was obviously a failure because they initially sold them as condos. He just wanted that big fucking building with the Trump sign. And it's not a casino. I don't know why people thought it was a casino. I actually dated a girl, too, who had worked there before they had bought it or bought the rooms, who had worked there as a maid. And I don't know if she still works there. But anyway, 83% are saying that they're not going to watch it if he's not on there. And of course he's going to be on there. Maybe this is just some big promotional bullshit. And it will hurt him if he's not on there neither. It makes him look like a little fucking baby because Roger Ailes said something about him, or again, I don't know the specifics, but it was some issue. All of a sudden he's friends with this guy for years. And then he says one little thing. I'm not going to do your debate then. I mean, he's a fucking baby. Not only is he a arrogant fuck, and just because he's arrogant, he wants to be in the spotlight. That was the other thing. I mean, you have plenty of billionaires that nobody knows who the hell they are, and they like it that way. They don't want to be. To me, it's all a lie. It's all bullshit. Because I look at it as you have people controlling pretty much what's going on. And I think based on that, it's either going to be Hillary or possibly Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump would be the perfect president for what the powers that be want. And not only that, I think it shows how much of a joke the country is, really, if Donald Trump can get elected president. Seriously, it's just that is very disturbing. It really is. And I guess now they're saying, and I don't mean to switch stories up here, we'll get back to this one, but this is just a quick, this story only had like 2 sentences, so this is just a quick story that, there's a picture of somebody in a fucking, looks like a jail cell with blood or lipstick all over their face. Oh, it says Donald Trump is a horror movie. No, really. But that now my Internet Explorer is stuck. I need to start using it's like that at work too. I think Google Chrome is what I need to start using. I used it today, and then all of a sudden everything speeded up. I thought I downloaded Google Chrome. Maybe I didn't, but I will. I do have Mozilla, but that seems the same. Anyway, sorry for that interruption, but they're saying that. So Donald Trump is pulling this bullshit now there's another debate on Thursday, which is tomorrow, on Fox. And now all of a sudden, after being best friends with Roger Ailes, who runs Fox News, because I guess it's on Fox News, has not Fox, because you have Fox, the network, and then you have Fox News, just like MSNBC or whatever. But that Donald Trump, what I heard today, has been friends with Roger Ailes, who runs Fox News for years. And he is on O'Reilly tonight as well. So I know he had a thing with Megyn Kelly. For those who don't know, who's another fake fucking... I don't want to say anything derogatory, but whatever. He got into an argument with her, and he made something alluding to blood and talking about her period blood or something or whatever. And that had happened. But I guess Roger Ailes said something about Donald Trump or something like that. You get bits and pieces of these stupid fucking stories. And now 83% of the people that were going to watch. Now, some idiots are going to think that means 83% of just the population, which, of course, it's not 83% of the population. It's 83% of the people that were going to watch are not going to watch if Donald Trump is not there. So what does that tell you? They're watching for the fighting and this is what really kills me about a lot of Americans, not all of them, but that's what a lot of them want. They want the drama, they want the controversy and all of that shit. And I can sit here all day and it's not something that you're going to hear from me. So I think that affects things where I'm not somebody who is going to have a guest or a co-host on and sit and argue with them the whole time. But there's a certain percentage of the population that love that. And how anybody can be attracted to Donald Trump as a candidate, and again, it's all rigged anyway. And I think them don't look at them like they're any better than anybody else. Look at it as you feel that you're in a situation that you don't have anything else to do, and the only thing is to vote for one of the candidates that are put in front of you. And if that's how you feel, that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. But you have people that go to these rallies, man, and scream for these people, and they get excited, and it's insane. It really is. Well, Camille Pagula, who I'm sure a lot of feminists know, she had, and I hope I have this right, that she wrote Girl Interrupted, I'm pretty sure, which I read in college. But she's a feminist, but she's more of a first wave feminist. She's a realistic feminist. She's not a brainwashed by the political bullshit. So anyway, in this article out of Salon, she says Hillary's blame men first feminism may prove costly in 2016. And what she's saying is, Hillary's gotten more, obviously more support from women than men, which would obviously make a lot of sense because a lot of women want to see the first woman president. And I guess I get that. I don't know. I mean, I don't really give a fuck. Maybe I would if my whole life it was women that were president. I mean, it doesn't bother me that most of my life, all my bosses were women. I think I had a couple men bosses. I do right now, but that's just recent. But it never really mattered to me as far as if a woman, and I don't give a fuck about president neither, but that again, that she's drawing her support from more women than men. So how by doing that, that she is going to be able to, because to get elected, she is going to have to get men's votes. And I guess she's lagging among men right now. Now, of course, they're going to say, well, it's because men don't want a woman president. And I don't think that's honestly the case. I think that they don't want her as president. I think there is an issue with her. I think there has always been. I think that people don't like her. She's not likable. And I'm looking at this from the standpoint of if I actually believed in all of this shit. But so I'm taking it from the standpoint that this shit is not rigged, and I actually believe as a voter that the voters can affect what happens, which I think is a bunch of shit. But what is not, which is what is a fact or not, you know, that I guess they can measure by polls, is how women feel about Hillary. And Camille Pagula is saying that that men, that she's lagging among men, that she is not somebody who men are lining up to vote for. And I don't know how that's going to affect the primary. It's really hard for me to do this sometimes when I go through, you know, because it's